Electrical contractors must give you a certificate of completion that shows their work meets approved standards. Find one nearby on safeelectric.ie.
OTB AM.
Brought to you by Avantcard Reward Plus Credit Card. Powered by MasterCard. Straight up better than your current credit card. Avantcard DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Good morning to you. It's Friday morning. It's just gone 7:30. Adrian with you this Friday and Eoin Sheahan alongside me. Morning to you, Eoin.
Good morning, Adrian.
How goes it?
Very well. How are you keeping?
I'm good. Flying, thanks very much. Yeah, a couple of things that we have plenty coming up on the show today, because it is ongoing through the summer, a pretty unbelievable few days in sport, and potentially a couple of unbelievable days ahead as well. So we'll get into all that in a few minutes. A couple of things we want to talk about at the top. One of them, a sort of bizarre bit of CCTV footage that has emerged over the last 24 hours, and indeed maybe even less than that, from London yesterday, where Mesut Ozil was out and about. He was called over to see his teammate Kolasinac and sort of, I presume, just sort of catch up a bit of pre-season chat. How's your summer going? Holidays good, amazing. Went to get back into his car, from what I can gather from this piece, and was set upon by a couple of lads, it seems, on a moped with the helmets on, as Sky put it, wielding a metal object. I mean, it looked like a knife, and I don't know exactly what this is. Like an 8-second. This is like an 8-second bit of footage you can see on your screen there. I don't know exactly how the dynamic came about. That Kolasinac was kind of standing at Ozil's door. I don't know, was that his wife was also in the car with him? It seems to be, maybe he's at that side of the car. And then Kolasinac, you can see here, is he's going to thump the head off that lad with the knife.
He fights knife robbers away. Like Mike Tyson said, he was the baddest man on the planet. Say Kolasinac is the new baddest man on the planet. That was absolutely incredible. And, you know, people can make plenty of jokes saying Mesut Ozil being a passenger once again while Kolasinac does the dirty work. That's ridiculous. Like, you don't mess with this guy. They clearly picked the wrong footballer to mess with yesterday, those knife robbers. So yeah. They're lucky that nothing worse happened to them. Did
he have much option almost in some ways? Like, what else was he going to do?
Run away?
But then he would have been exposing... I'd say he felt a degree of responsibility, given that it was outside. It seems like they were trying to steal his watch, or Ozil's watch, or whatever. I don't know how they could distinctly sort of decipher that was what was at play, but that was the report that I read. But it was outside his gaff, so maybe he felt some degree of responsibility that, oh geez, he's come around to see me, and like the lads have set upon him, I need to make sure he gets out of here safely.
I am giving Kolasinac the benefit of the doubt here, 100%, that actually he didn't need to do anything, but he decided he was going to be a vigilante and take things into his own hands.
What would he have done?
Like, he looked
Run
like
away.
He looked like he was executing a Tony Adams warm-up drill there as well. So so fast on his feet. Brilliant stuff. And yeah, it's a fantastic start to Arsenal season, really.
So then it seems that the mopeds chased Ozil in the car he drove off for a while, and the mopeds went after him, and he rang ahead to the restaurant that it seems like the two of them go to. It might be a kebab shop, and rang ahead and said, oh listen, there's some lads chasing me on a moped, could you ring the police? Which seems like a bizarre set of circumstances. Like, if there's a couple of lads chasing me in a moped and I know that one of them's got a knife, I'm definitely not going to the local kebab shop, and I'm definitely not ringing them to tell them that, could you possibly ring the police?
Well, you don't know. You don't know what connections people have in shops anywhere, really. I mean, he could go to any business and get some help. So I don't know.
What I'm doing is I might Google Map. If I'm not familiar with the area, I might Google Map, because I think there was himself and his wife in the car. Google Map, police station, ring ahead. Listen, lads, I'm en route. A couple of lads chasing me here. Do you know what I mean?
Or go 999.
Yeah.
Instead of Google Mapsing.
No, but I mean, because you want to drive yourself to the... Ideally.
That is true,
other than
give an account.
Because at some point you're going to realise you're going to have to stop at traffic lights and...
Well, the first thing you do there is just count your blessings that you're still there and that you're not injured, and that you happen to be teammates with a fella who happens to just be one of the most... I don't know, one of the craziest, I was going to say bravest, one of the craziest guys ever. To take on two knife robbers, it seems, is a remarkable thing to do.
Listen, and you don't know until you're there in that moment. You know, when you call around to my house someday and there's somebody outside, and we'll see how all that goes. You know,
I would 100% run away.
You'd run away, you'd be gone.
100%, yeah.
Right.
Like, you are in a car, you can drive away as well.
I did think that. I did think that. So maybe it was self-protection, self-preservation almost.
Of course it was. This was...
it wasn't because it's been put out there, it's sort of, he was protecting Ozil a bit, but actually...
No, well, it's not self-protection, it's just protection in general, protection of society. I'm not going to get messed around by two guys. I don't care what you've got in your hand. I'm a professional footballer. I'm a tough man. I'm going to take you both on. And he did that and he won.
And you're saying, if there was any other foot, you'd be happy to...
He should be like installed into the next version of Tekken immediately, said Kalajnak.
The other sort of big story that's obviously continues to unfold is the cricket at Lords, and it's been like... I know that it certainly caught our attention, the office during the week when the wickets started to fall one after another in pretty quick succession. But the enormity of what's at play here, I don't know that people fully kind of grasp this, and I'm not sure that I grasped it really. I was listening to Test Match Special, the BBC cricket show last night. Niall O'Brien was on it. There were...
listen to Mark O'Neill on it, no? He was their special guest 2 days ago.
I didn't listen to Mark O'Neill.
That's the beauty of Test Match Special, obviously, is the ridiculously long form interviews they do when the players are at lunch or if the bit of downtime, and he was the special guest. That's when you know you've made us, is when Test Match Special offer you an interview.
So yeah, there was obviously a lot of English voices on there and a lot of hand wringing going on. Jonathan Agnew and like, oh, this is terrible stuff, and Michael Vaughan, and they're picking through it. A lot of it not hugely complimentary to the Irish team, to be honest about it. There were a lot of them sort of saying that it was more England really poor rather than Ireland being in any way exceptional. They were at pains to say how they weren't, we don't want to be patronising here, and then obviously went ahead to be as patronising as they possibly could be.
They're good at that.
Niall O'Brien did say at one point that this would be the greatest, if Ireland win, it's the biggest moment in Irish sporting history, not just cricket.
Yeah, that's not true. Let's not get carried away with ourselves here, but...
I did feel that, having heard it, that Des Cahill would be getting the tie ready and the Van Aquilin, that we need to rerun the fun here on the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time.
Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing thing to even be in contention for, to win at Lords in our first ever Test appearance at Lords. It is absolutely magnificent. The fact that it is there, the home of cricket, makes it one of the most iconic moments in Irish sporting history if we get the win. But we also need to remember the context around this as well. Like, England are looking at this as a warm-up for the Ashes. I know you've been reading articles this morning talking about the hangover from the World Cup. To be honest with you, I kind of disagree with English people who are trying to justify it in that way, the underperformance as a hangover from the World Cup. You've got enough good Test players to not rely on ODI players, for example. But this idea that we're coming up against one of the great England teams primed to actually take us on is just not true. Like, it's not the same thing as saying a massive achievement in a World Cup, for example.
So you're actually agreeing
they're actually going gung-ho for what Ireland are at.
One of the arguments that Martin Samuels makes in the Mail this morning is that a lot of these players are philosophically and literally hung over from the one-day success, obviously. But look at, you take that point on its merits, and there are some of the players that featured obviously there that have been sent away in their jollies, and more of them that just haven't made the Test team. So are you having the hangover or not having the hangover?
I'm not having the hangover, but I do think it is part of how we should contextualise this in terms of the overall best Irish sporting achievement ever.
Little asterisk saying, by the way, England were hungover. They just won the World Cup the week before.
Kind of. Like, okay, so I can kind of see what Martin Samuel is saying, and part of me agrees with that, but overall, I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, you should have enough good players to not have to rely on anybody who may be suffering from a World Cup hangover.
Didn't the greatest moment of all time that was debated on last year, it had the Munster beat the All Blacks thing, and very high in the rankings, if I remember rightly. It was I think in the top 5 or something like that, if my memory serves. Wasn't the whole story around that Munster had taken the All Blacks out of the piss the night before? Wasn't that part of the rationale? That's part of the lore. There wasn't too many people sitting around going, listen, but you do know like that all the lads were like absolutely hanging from the night before. I don't know. I don't think history reflects on that, really. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not Irish history. Maybe I'm
completely wrong here. Like, I'm not saying that this is an underwhelming achievement. This has been absolutely amazing.
And it sounds like you've been not at all impressed.
It's been magnificent to watch England getting beaten at Lords on its own merits. That's a fantastic thing to look at. But for Ireland to be doing it to them is absolutely incredible. And I do take his point in the fact of being an underdog. Like, even at start of play yesterday, even at start of play today, where England are still odds-on favourites, and this thing may not happen. So this just shows the scale of the achievement that this will be. I'm just thinking to myself, like, it is even Bangalore 8 years ago, or whatever, 8 years ago at this point, you're coming up against teams that are going gung-ho to get a win on that occasion. Part of me thinks that England aren't. They have their eye on the Ashes. At the same time, though, that doesn't diminish this or it doesn't completely destroy this as a sporting achievement. It's still insanely brilliant. Just for it to be the best Irish sporting achievement of all time, what I would say is that this is...
No. The best... I mean, I appreciate now that this is absolute pedantry, but it's the greatest Irish sporting moment, which is actually, when you boil it down, and we could get into the season, be here until 10:30 this morning doing it, but it is definitely different from the greatest Irish achievement. Like, the greatest Irish moment is Houghton and Stuttgart, whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's not the scale of success, it's the moment. I mean, I'm sorry to be pedant about it, but I think that's...
The moment would be better if this was England's Ashes, basically. It would be better if England... If this was the centrepiece of their Test summer. And granted, I accept that is not the way that the sport works, and it will never be the way. We will never have a Test before the Ashes against England, and they care about us more than they care about Australia. That'll never be the way. So there's no way you can win this argument, really. I just think with those iconic football moments in the 90s, this is not a bigger sporting moment than that.
I think the case for it is that
people will think that now I'm saying that it's not a big moment at all. Of course it is. If we win this, it is huge. Don't get me wrong.
I think the case for it is that, like, even fascinating listening to Paul Rouse on Tuesday, I'm going to say, with Joe talking about the history of cricket in Ireland and what a popular sport it once was, and how there was the fork in the road moment where Michael Cusack was at one point this great advocate for the game in Ireland, and then suddenly, in the space of a very short amount of time, just in a total about turn, and obviously went hell-bent behind the GA, and we know where that ended. But the popularity of the sport in this country, the history that it's been on, the path that it's been on over the last 100 years or thereabouts, and what a niche sport it is in so many ways in the country now, in a way that at one point looked as if it would dominate the Irish sporting landscape for decades and centuries to come. So for it to morph into this effectively niche sport, and for us to be playing our third ever, for us to have been on the journey, like you've mentioned some of the successes already, been on that journey that we've been on to get Test status, to be playing England in our third ever Test match, to be playing England at Lord's in our third ever Test match, to perform as well as we have done. Yes, there's the asterisks of what's happened over the last couple of weeks, but I do actually get some of the what he's talking about. It has to be in the conversation for the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time. The difficulty with it is that it's a niche sport. It's very difficult for a niche sport to actually ever win that argument, because if you were to consider, if we were to have, let's say hypothetically, to pick right off the top of my head, sport, swimming, that we were to have, let's say, a one-off great success at, let's say, I don't know, like an Olympic Games, and we were to win 3 gold medals and a bronze or whatever it might be, and you would debate about that being the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time. It's difficult to suggest that it wouldn't be, right? But its nicheness almost means that the odds are stacked right against it from the get-go.
Exactly. It's easier to make this a case for this being the greatest sporting achievement rather than the greatest sporting moment, because a moment means that you have the entire country behind you. Shane Lowry is the greatest sporting achievement of this decade. The greatest Irish sporting achievement of this decade. Sporting moment of this decade. Moment of this decade.
Is that not achievement? I would put that in the achievement bracket.
Because the achievement adds to the moment.
But then the achievement
scenes add to the moment. Exactly. The support adds to the moments. Shane Lowry is the moment of the decade. Fair. No matter what the cricketers do, and good luck to them, they're doing absolutely amazingly. And I won't be as happy, obviously the cricketers will be the happiest people in the world if they win. I won't be as happy as them, but they will be the happiest people in the world. I will be as happy as other passive cricket fans if they end up beating England this week. It will be an unbelievable achievement, and it will be brilliant for the sport in this country. But Shane Lowry's the sporting moment.
No, because also in terms of achievement, we've had other people who've achieved that exact same thing. So then you're into a straight shootout between, well, you did that, and you also did that exact same thing. So it's difficult. And also, I should point out that in my analogy of the swimming, that if somebody were to do that hypothetical thing, you'd have just unbelievable amount of questions to ask about them. So
I will say this: Ireland beating England in Lord's would be a better sporting moment than the Dubs winning 5 in a row.
I mean, I know you're saying that for other reasons than actually believing it, right?
I mean, the underdog story.
Right, we want your thoughts on that.
In your away patch. Dublin are hot favourites on their home patch.
We know we will continue this for the next hour and a half if we let him. But do get in contact with your thoughts on your thoughts on, is it like the greatest, would it be the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time, of the last decade? Any and all thoughts, welcome, so get them into us however you're consuming us this morning. It's 7:45. We're delighted to have you along with us. And coming up today, we're going to let you know what's happening across the sports pages in just a few moments' time. Diarmuid Lyng is going to preview what is a pretty appetising weekend of All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship semi-finals, including his own Wexford in action, obviously, this weekend. So we're going to get his thoughts on that. Ross Tucker is going to talk about the Tour de France and a couple of more bits and pieces as well. John Duggan is going to join us in the studio just before 9 o'clock. He's written an interesting piece on Shane Lowry for offtheball.com this week, and it's proved to be our most popular piece, so it's for that reason we're bringing John in. We'll get his thoughts on a few other bits too. We're going to talk to, I believe, Niall O'Brien, Tommy, if I'm right, is going to join us just about 9 o'clock, and we will put that exact point that we've just been debating to him, because he's the one who sparked it last night. Is this the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time? And Eoin is going to make all the counterpoints that he's just been making about how it's...
Why do you think it's the best Irish sporting moment ever?
Listen, I'm just saying...
Do you think it's the best Irish sport?
In the top,
I don't think you think it's the best Irish sporting moment ever.
Yeah, I probably agree with you, yeah.
There you go.
I mean, I think it's worthy of discussion, but, you know. Sports news with... who are we going to have in sports news? Will is going to join us in sports news just after 9 o'clock, and then we'll have deal or no deal as well at about 9:15. So join us in the hashtag OTBAM at any point. We want to get your comments in, any abuse for Eoin or any of that kind of stuff. Do keep it coming. Papers are next, but first, check this out.
Join Off the Ball in Abu Dhabi this November 17th to 23rd for the inaugural Off the Ball Open. With flights from Dublin, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, golf on 2 championship courses, gala awards dinner, Peter Lowry golf clinic, and a live Off the Ball roadshow. You can also hang out with some special guests, including Kevin Kilban and Kieran Donaghy. The inaugural Off the Ball Open. Book now at CassidyTravel.ie and check out offtheball.com.
What are you grinning about?
No, it just sounds like Nathan saying something else at the end of that video.
It really doesn't. I've listened to it and it doesn't. Right, Eoin insisted that we start off with the Telegraph this morning, and England's close shave is how they're couching this one. Had a pretty brilliant shot yesterday. Jason Roy avoids a delivery and loses a shoe at the exact same time as Roy joins Night Watchman Leach in partnership that could save the hosts from Ireland humiliation. As the Telegraph has it. We'll see, Telegraph, we will see.
It is humiliation for them, absolute, and that will make it all the more special, and hopefully it does happen. On the green is the headline on the back page of the Irish Daily Mail: Open success paves way for Ryder's return. That's with regards to Ireland's riding the crest of the Open to host the Ryder Cup for the first time in 20 years. It's Adair Manor, and it's Adair's Manor as Ireland set up Lord's Shock, so that's Mark Adair, after bowling a wicket at Lord's yesterday. And Lowry lined up for Croker Acclaim at semi-finals, so Shane Lowry is going to parade the Claret Jug at Croke Park tomorrow, where up to 60,000 are due to attend the match between Kilkenny and Limerick.
He wanted to do it for the I think it was wanted that he would do it for the All-Ireland final, and the Offaly Jubilee team, I think from 94, whatever it would have been, were to be it, but it's clashing with the schedule, so this time he's not willing to say, listen, screw it, I'll just do it anyway. Kylie keeps the faith for Limerick's duel with Cats is one of the main stories in the back page of the Irish Independent this morning. He's named the same team for the Ireland semi-final. A brilliant picture there as well, as is the case on a number of the back pages today, of Rasidat Adeleki, who blitzed rivals to claim her second gold medal at the European Youth Olympics. And more details on that inside. And Spurs starlet Parrott primed to take flight for McCarthy, writes Don McDonald as well. If he's playing in the first game of the season, says Mick McCarthy, if he is starting and playing for Spurs, he'll have to be a shoe-in for the squad. I felt there was a lot of pointedness about the if from Mick McCarthy there. It was an easy way out for him.
He started both of their pre-season games. I
think Mick was kind of saying that, like, it's grand to start a pre-season game and that's fine, but if he starts playing these other games, like, of course I'd have to play him. I think he doubts that he will be playing those games.
Well, it's not like Spurs have been, I know they've only played 2 matches I think in pre-season. Yeah. It's not like they've been playing Troy Parrott and the rest of the kids in every single game. They've been strong teams. Parrott's been about 2 or 3 of the new faces, I want to say. He's obviously not a new face to any Irish football fans, but to football fans outside of Ireland, 2 or 3 new faces. He's been one of them, so he's right at the top of the queue for somebody who's going to make a breakthrough into the Spurs team. it's incredibly hopeful that this guy is actually going to become a Premier League substitute for a lot of games. By a lot of games, I mean a dozen plus this season. That would be my hope, that he makes the bench for about 12 games this Premier League season, which would be absolutely fantastic. You mentioned Rashida Adeleke as well, winning her second gold medal there last night. Athletics Ireland actually had video up on their Twitter account yesterday of her winning gold in the 200 metres. This is the 100 metres, sorry. This was a couple of nights ago. We'll play the 200 metres very shortly indeed. She crushes the field in both of these races. Here she is out in front. You'll get a better picture now once they come down the last 20 metres or so. That one was a bit closer. Now we have the 200 metres here as well. By all accounts, it was very dominant from this camera angle. It's kind of hard to make out, but we'll play it anyway. You can also hear kind of, it's clearly an empty stadium largely, but there's a good bit of support for Adeleke from the Irish cohort who did travel over. Coming down the home stretch here. She's absolutely incredible. She sits her leaving cert next summer. Still 16 years of age, born in Dublin 2002 to Nigerian parents. There she is, you can see a couple of yards on the field there. So last year she would have really come into our view in Győr in Hungary. That was the European Under-18 Championships when she won gold in the 200 and that one as well. So an unbelievable talent, and like she was speaking in the aftermath and she said it was a very late decision to actually run both events.
Oh really?
Say, I'm going to do the 100 and the 200. Not a bad call in hindsight. So that was at the European Youth Olympics, happens every second year. It's absolutely unbelievable. She is one of the best talents we have in Irish sport at the moment at an underage level. So hugely encouraging times. So
don't get overly excited about.
Don't get overly excited.
That is the message across the board today, whether it's football or athletics. I did enjoy the fact that one of our team at the end there was right down by the track with the tricolour ready to go. Like there was an absolute expectation that this is going to happen. You know what I mean? Like it's the Shane Lowry to his wife. Listen, just make sure that the wee girl is there at the end. Like no matter what happens, it's just make sure the tricolour is there at the end. We don't know.
She has 6 championship medals in sprinting over the last 3 summers. For Ireland to have 6 championship medals in sprinting over any period of time is good, let alone one individual. So things are encouraging. But of course, with any underage athlete, you don't want to put too much pressure on them. The Irish Examiner this morning leads with "To the Manor Born." JP's Adair masterpiece confirmed as 2026 Ryder Cup venue. Bridging the gap, John Kiley isn't overthinking Limerick's layoff since Munster final, while Paul Rouse is writing about Offaly people and their pride in Shane Lowry. Troy the boy, meanwhile, Mick McCarthy says, "I'd like to see him playing in September." And frantic finish, Ireland still harbour hopes of shock result at Lords. Should mention as well that Derek McGrath is writing in today's Irish Examiner with a nod to Cruyff, how the greats have made total hurling a reality.
The Irish Daily Star this morning will give him a Troy. Troy Parrott, make promises Parrott a place in the next squad. That's the line that's doing the rounds this morning. Harry Maguire, also out here, Manchester United, may have to meet the full asking price for Harry Maguire after Eric Bailly suffered a knee injury, and Lopez gives Hoops vital Europa edge. That was Rovers' 2-1 win lead that they took over Apollon Limassol in Tala last night. Roberto Lopez with the goal there.
Yeah, and he's on the back page of the Sun as well. We've got Hi Lopes, Hi Lopez. Roberto sets up a Cyprus thrill. Mick to give him a Troy as well, says the Sun. Our mark of quality, meanwhile, that's Mark Adair. And JP Ryder Cup joy, that's the story that Adair Manor is hosting the 2026 Ryder Cup.
The Irish Daily Mirror, meanwhile, sign him quick. Ole desperate for United to land £80 million Maguire after Bailly knee injury. The same story there again. Boost for Troy story is the other line from Paul O'Hare there, and obviously reflections as well from Lords yesterday. Brilliant Irish on the brink. It kind of depends on who you read this morning, because obviously the Telegraph's there are different takes on it, and listening to all the experts, it seems like it is very much still very much in the balance, this game.
The Irish Times lead this morning with Jackie Tyrrell's column, "Limiting Foley's influence, key to success for Tip." A lot of good stuff in this. He really hates losing semi-finals, Jackie Tyrrell. I don't think I've ever seen somebody who hates something as much as losing anything as Tyrrell hates losing semi-finals. He says, "I always felt All-Ireland semi-finals were like when you were a young teenager, full of life and mischief, as you walked up to a nightclub door and approached the bouncers, bursting with excitement about how the night would unfold. Suddenly, the large hand of the bouncer would be shoved in your face at the door. 'Not tonight, son.' Disaster." So he writes a couple of paragraphs about not getting let into nightclubs, and then proceeds to make another comparison between semi-finals and how losing them is the worst thing ever. But a semi-final defeat is just oblivion, neither here nor there. It's the friend zone. You don't want to be in the friend zone. Doesn't like losing semis, so that's what's going to greet two of the teams this weekend. Yeah. The friend zone.
The Herald Mick Parrott needs games, so this is just more reflections on that. Mick McCarthy obviously out in front of the press yesterday, John Brennan and Dan MacDonald writing there that he could be about to get his opportunity, obviously the 17-year-old with Ireland, and also reflections too on Shamrock Rovers 2, Limassol 1 in Tala last night. Avoiding injury in Oma is priority, writes Kieran Whelan.
He's not wrong.
Inside.
The Racing Post leads with a picture of a thermometer. It's at Sandown, 38 degrees Celsius. Mercury rising is the headline there. And Southwell called off as Britain swelters. The back page of the Racing Post then is looking to land a blow. Mikel can make his mark in the mountains. Mikel Landa, perhaps one of the challengers to Julian Alaphilippe in the Tour de France.
Leach puts batsman to shame. This is the unlikely story in the Times of Jack Leach, who was the night watchman number 11 ordinarily in the order, and came out to hit a 92. Got the nervous 90s, he was saying after his innings, that just got inside of that 100 and was like, interesting story of a guy who has had an interesting enough path to that position, seems to know that he's not necessarily the world's greatest batsman in the world, and that what he achieved yesterday was pretty unusual as well. So, I mean, fair play to him, obviously, but from an Irish point of view, it's unfortunate that he picked that moment to knock his best innings in an English shirt, but we shall see which side he ends up on. Spurs sorry for Sissoko stamp. This was Sissoko stamping on Daniel James' chest. I saw a photograph of it. It certainly didn't look pretty, but sometimes a photograph can do.
No, I saw it.
Did you see the actual
thing? The video? Yeah, right. It's horrific.
Awful.
For a pre-season game.
Yeah, needless.
Really needless. Like, I'm pretty sure he had the ball at his feet and he had turned away from the challenge.
Right.
He left that foot lingering and stamped it down a little bit further as well. A bizarre thing to see in a pre-season match. The back page of The Guardian was home hopes heat up, Leach falls in nervous 90s but ignites England's revival, and their angle on the Tour de France is Tour tactics meltdown, Team Ineos tensions exposed after Thomas and Bernal help Alaphilippe increase his lead. They've obviously had to deal with this in the past. It was an incredible day yesterday when Froome and Bradley Wiggins fell out with each other a couple of years ago over team tactics. Something similar may be happening in Team Ineos, of course, the former Team Sky, after a bizarre set of circumstances yesterday where Egan Bernal had broken away from the peloton, and Geraint Thomas's job was just to hang back, hold everybody back. He's like, nah, screw this, I'm going to go as well. Not doing his teammates any help whatsoever. So I'd imagine they were furious with him last night. But of course, Dave Brailsford is like a duck on water, kind of serene, and doesn't really react to anything like that when asked by reporters afterwards. Yeah,
he's used to dealing with sticky situations, so like a question like that is...
Few of them, yeah. I think when it comes to team tensions, bread and butter.
Easy stuff. Right, back page of As. Meanwhile, just to give you a bit of flavour of what's happening here, Derby made in USA. I can't read the small print there on. I don't know if you've got any...
Madrid y Atleti disputan on New Jersey su primer duelo fuera de Europa.
Right, the two of them are playing in America. That's grand. I mean, yeah, okay. Is that it, Tommy? Is that way? That's us on the papers this morning. Yeah, right, that's it on the papers this morning. One comment in here from Leslie Robinson who says, lads, I don't think I've heard Eoin Sheahan have so much funny talk about Kerry like he did this morning about cricket. Hope it happens for us, Eoin.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of people under the impression that you're not really that worried one way or the other.
About the cricket?
Yeah.
I take that
I'm just trying to summarise and reflect best what the viewpoints from the listeners that have viewers and listeners that have been sent.
Of course I care what happens in the cricket. Like, I mean, do I watch county cricket week in, week out? No. Have I got on the Irish bandwagon this week? Yes. Without question. But just because you're a bandwagoner doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. I would say I speak for a lot of people this week saying we're bandwagoners, and I'm proud of it. Will I be watching Ireland's next test? Yes. So perhaps it's not going to be a bandwagon thing.
Who's up next?
We haven't got it to the next test, I don't think.
Not the pencil in yet.
I'm not sure.
The calendar.
But I've got a blank calendar. Pencil me in for any particular dates.
It's a great thing to go to. I went to England, New Zealand, like I'd say it's maybe 15 years ago now, and I had no idea sort of what to expect or what would happen. But it is an unbelievable day out, like incredible day out. I just went to one day of a test, and it was just an absolutely cracking day out, and it's nothing very much to do with like what's going on out in the field. It's a lot to do with obviously having a couple of drinks, and there was a huge amount of banter between the crowd and the various players who would be like the lads who were out deep in the field would be out signing autographs and taking selfies, and just a great day out.
And have you gone to one since 15 years ago?
No.
Jeez, it must have left a lasting impact.
No, but I mean, I was at that point. That test was up the road for me, whereas actually, obviously, it's been difficult to get to tests in Ireland.
Because you lived in New Zealand, obviously.
At any point, I was there for a while. Yeah.
Were you devastated with their World Cup defeat?
Absolutely gutted. Yeah.
Like they are would they have been your number one cricket team? Like at test level, obviously, until 2 years ago.
They were on absolutely head and shoulders. Yeah. I had no great affiliation for them one way or the other, I have to say. The Black Caps. Yeah,
well, let's hope that Ireland gets a test against New Zealand eventually at some point in the sport.
And then my sort of loyalties will be pulled one way and the other. Is that what you're saying?
Potentially, yeah. I don't think, like, I'm sure even people who haven't been watching it this week would be able to appreciate what could potentially happen here. Now, granted, I'm a little bit reluctant to say and get carried away with actually analysing a moment that just has not occurred yet. Maybe it'll hit me then when Ireland actually are walking off laurels with a test win against England. Yeah. It'll be like, okay, now I get it. This is as good as it gets for an Irish sporting moment. Like, part of this argument here is based in a completely hypothetical situation. Ireland have had their batting troubles as well. They need to go out and put up a relatively good score, you would imagine, unless this morning is extraordinary from England with only 1 wicket remaining. So I don't know. Of course I appreciate how big this is, but I think even people
it sounds like when you're explaining something so deeply, when you're explaining you're losing sort of thing.
Not really. I think that I'm saying that this is a huge moment. Like, you sort of painted this picture that I don't give a shit about what this achievement is, just because I don't think it's the biggest Irish sporting moment of all time.
I'm just sort of trying to summarise whatever people that have been in contact with on. Let's keep everything in context here. I think we'll ask Niall.
That's exactly what I'm doing. Let's keep everything in context here when it comes to Irish sporting moments.
Let's ask Niall O'Brien when he comes on after 9 o'clock or thereabouts to expand further on his thoughts about this possibly being the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time. So we'll ask him to do that when he's with us. It is just after 2 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us, and we want to hear from you as well. Any thoughts, get them into us. The Sports Breakfast Show, of course, from Off the Ball with you every morning from 7:30 on OTBAM, sponsored by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard. We're going to be talking hurling in a few minutes' time, but before all of that, we want you to check this out. It's Jason Quigley who joined the lads on last night's Off the Ball after his first professional defeat last Thursday night. The podcast in full, by the way, is also worth checking out, but take a look at this.
To be honest, Andy, I've noticed over the last few years, and it's probably because of my injury, that the boxing game, and I don't know if I'm going to be very popular after this, but the boxing game doesn't really hold too many good personalities in the sport. There's a lot of people in this sport that are in it for one thing, and that's to make a few pound and to do it whatever way they got to do it. And it's very difficult and it's very hard to find genuine, caring, good people in the sport of boxing. And to be honest, for a while that made me think, like, what's this game all about? It's a very selfish, it's a very lonely, it's a very stab in the back kind of game. And I'm talking about this not really from my own experience, but from a lot of experience that I've seen other fighters go through. And I think it's one of the only sports out there, I think, that they can have these kind of personalities, they can have these kind of people in the sport, and they can get away with these kind of things.
Placing a bet during the Galway Festival? Then look no further than Bruce Betting. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In-store, online, and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie.
Let's face it, the Irish summer has serious commitment issues. It's always late, disappears for weeks at a time, and consistently breaks its promises. But not us. At Electric Ireland, we're committed to giving you an 8.5% saving on your gas and electricity year after year after year after year. Visit electricireland.ie/join for the kind of commitment you deserve.
Estimated annual bill €1,736. Average consumption, urban 24-hour, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax. Residential, dual fuel, direct debit and online billing. Terms and conditions apply. See electricireland.ie/EAB. Rates at 1st of April 2019, subject to change.
All right, OTBAM on this Friday morning. Loads more to come. We're going to talk Tour de France with Ross Tucker. We're going to talk cricket with Niall O'Brien. We're going to have Deal or No Deal coming up a bit later on. John Duggan is going to join us in studio to talk about his piece. It was the most popular article on offtheball.com this week. It was about Shane Lowry, and obviously there's a couple of other points to touch on with John when he's in, including the appointment of Dare Manor for Ryder Cup 2026. €100 million investment in Dare Manor was the number that I read this morning from... that JP McManus has invested. It's incredible, isn't it?
That is ridiculous. I thought that's what you said it would cost for the whole locality, or what the boom might be, and the amount of money that might exchange hands over the next, whatever it is, 7 years. Yeah, it's remarkable. Have you played it there, Manor?
I haven't, but every week I meet somebody who has, and it increases my thirst to want to get down there because it sounds incredible. Disneyland is the expression that keeps coming up.
Disneyland?
Yeah.
In what context?
It's just like Disneyland. Like, the entire place is so well manicured and perfectly looked after. There isn't like a bladed grass out of place.
Can't go on Space Mountain in a Dare Manor though.
There was. Do you follow Robbie Keane on Instagram?
Yeah.
Did you see that? He stayed there a few weeks ago, and
must have missed that particular
Instagram
update.
Storied, if that's the expression. Every half an hour about some other amazing part of it wasn't to do with the golf so much as the hotel, which looks absolutely incredible. So all I'm saying is open to invites, open to offers, happy to get down there and sort of do a review of a Dare Manor that I can imagine would only be positive on. You know, that's the sort of thing I'm saying.
I'm sure it would be. I'm looking forward to watching your vlog from a Dare Manor and a Dare. It's a beautiful town, and it's great that it's getting the Ryder Cup.
I never know again, you see, whether are you back into cricket vote here when you're saying it's a beautiful town? It's like...
It is a beautiful town.
Yeah.
Have you ever been there, no?
Oh, I've spent hours in a Dare, yeah. Sitting in my car trying to get through it.
Yeah, well, that is the punchline that everybody tends to use when talking about a Dare. Can you not just appreciate for its beauty when you're stuck in that horrific traffic?
And it looks like a beautiful town. It's obviously jam-packed with tourists. So
there is talks of a bypass now since the Ryder Cup has been given. So.
I think it's about time, really.
It is. Like, I mean, leave the beauty be a deliberate excursion.
Yeah.
Like, go to a Dare Manor if you want to appreciate the beauty. I think not enough people appreciate it because everybody's so annoyed and angry because they're sitting in traffic waiting to get to wherever they want to go to. Yeah. Whereas now, it'll be for people who actually want to be there.
I'm assuming it would probably flourish as well if you actually bypass the thing.
You would imagine so.
Like, because the idea that if you force a lot of people to sit in it for hours on end, that's somehow going to boost business, it doesn't really stack up for me.
No, it's not like people are like stuck in a traffic jam and they're like, oh, I was going for a pint there while my car is stuck in traffic. It's not really how
get the hell out of there, like, that's the...
Yeah, it's not exactly boosting things, you're right, but yeah, it's great. The K Club, it's going to be a very kind of different feel to the K Club. It kind of felt that was a Dublin-centric Ryder Cup, whereas this very much obviously not the case whatsoever. A lot of people did base themselves in Dublin for the K Club, and that can't happen this time, obviously, so it's great. It's just been, what a week for Irish golf it's been, and what a year it's been.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that far when you consider, like, you know, like, even, I know John was talking about him being in Port Rush, it was an hour and a half up and down the road from Belfast he was travelling for. It wouldn't be a huge stretch, but yeah, I covered the Ryder Cup at the K Club that time, and it was just an unbelievable, one of the greatest sporting events I've ever been at. It was incredible for all sorts of different reasons.
Better than New Zealand, England?
Certainly up there when you're in that kind of...
Was there as much banter as you said?
A lot of banter. And I've been insanely jealous of not having gotten up to Port Rush last week, given everything that materialised in the end. So I know it's 7 years away, and who knows where we'll be at that stage of the game on, but definitely be thinking of trying to get myself down there.
Great year of sport already, 2026, shaping up for the old Canadian, American, Mexican World Cup as well.
All right.
So chalk that down. Don't plan in 2026 just yet.
There's talk of a bypass since the 80s, says laughing emoji, says Ian M on YouTube. Morning to Ian.
It's a good point. Surely this will finally hammer it home.
You would think so. And great to see prospects in the future for athletics and sprinting. Ireland don't have great success there. Proud moment, says Keith Brennan. Good morning to you, Keith. Also on YouTube. So do keep your comments coming into us. We're going to be, as I said, talking Tour de France a little bit later on with Ross Tucker's going to join us on that. I presume he'll cast some sort of a curious eye over events.
I'm sure he will. For me, the kind of punter, you do get kind of carried away with it a little bit. We will be casting a critical eye over it, as you have to do with all sports, really, I guess, but particularly with the Tour de France. from a pure excitement point of view. If am I allowed to get excited as well as be sceptical about everything? I think you are. It's going to be an amazing couple of days. Yesterday was absolutely fantastic. I got home at around 3 o'clock and turned it on, and Sean Kelly was like, well, you know, we kind of expected a lot of excitement today and it hasn't really materialised. I was like, oh, for God's sake. This was supposed to be one of the best stages. And then all of a sudden it just sparked into life. You had Alaphilippe struggling. He lost the wheel and he managed to get it back on the descent. It was a life-threatening descent is what he put in there yesterday.
I saw some of it, Jed. Is he going to win it now? Is that your take on it? In a couple of big days, obviously.
I thought he was broken yesterday and he managed to come back, and he almost got into a position where he was going to add time to his lead, but that didn't actually materialise in the end. It was extraordinary, and I'll be interested to hear what Ross has to say.
Two big games, obviously, this weekend in the Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. It's the semi-final time. First of them tomorrow evening at Croke Park, 6 o'clock throw-in between Kilkenny and Limerick. And then it's on to Sunday, 3:30, as Wexford take on Tipperary. Both of those games at Croke Park should be an absolute couple of belters. So we are going to talk hurling, and we're going to focus on Wexford right now.
This is rural sport, and this is bullfighting by a different standard. And you get out there and you do it, and you second like get on with it, and that's it. And that's what he's done, and that's it. What the hell more do we want? Like, analysing him to death, and he said this and he said that. Look at, we won Leinster.
One great hurling Wexford man to another, from Liam Griffin to Diarmuid Lyng. Good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian. How are you doing?
Very, very well. How are you getting on? All good?
Yeah, very good. A little bit uncomfortable in that introduction in comparison with Liam Griffin. Always, like, I was 15 or 16 when Wexford won the Ireland in 1996, so he was always a big hero of mine. But yeah, we're back up into possible glory days. So
greatness comes in all shapes and sizes, Diarmuid. So take it as it's meant. A couple of big games this weekend. Most saying Limerick Tip final. Presume you don't go with that.
Yeah, it depends where you are in the country, maybe. I think we're much more confident than we ever would be before against Tipperary. I never had any great confidence playing against Tipperary, to be honest, because we put them up there beside probably. We had more experience of Kilkenny. We kind of knew what we were dealing with an awful lot more. When you went outside of the province and it got into quarterfinals and semi-finals, we'd play against Tipperary. They were such an unknown quantity, but they carried such a tradition that I didn't feel that we often had great belief against them. But then sometimes when I read, like, you know, Lengainer and these lads, you look at them talking about Wexford and Tipperary back over the years, they have great respect for Wexford because Wexford often bet Tipperary. So it's on the tradition stakes, it seems to be okay. Tipperary have won a huge amount more, but I think we're quietly confident in that too, because there is respect going back over time. But coming up to Sunday, obviously those things don't really matter too much. We are confident based on the performances we're eking out and what we're getting out of ourselves, much more so than where Tipperary are at the moment. Yeah, and maybe like when you start to stack up the reasons as to why Wexford might win this, like you look at you can't read very much into the Laois game, obviously, other than to say that maybe they should have won by a bigger margin. They've obviously had a few weeks off, and when you look maybe especially at the Munster final, it's maybe a little early in this Tipperary's team under Liam Sheahan again in terms of their trajectory, that there are reasons for hope there for Wexford. Yeah, this is the most interesting thing for me, is that what happened and what happens to Tipperary after they have these successes. Like, why do they go from so far up 90-95% all the time in terms of performance, and then they slip right back down to 60-70%? When Liam Sheahan came back in, everybody, I think, was very hopeful that, okay, we're going to go back to where things were when Liam Sheahan took them to an Ireland success, and there was a buoyancy in that expectation early on, and we saw that. I mean, they were outstanding in the first of the championship, bit shaky in the league, but outstanding in the first of the championship. But I wonder what causes the bit of dissonance, what causes that shakiness, and could Liam Sheahan possibly have dealt with it in his first few months as a manager? And I don't think he could. So I think that there's shakier foundations there, and as time has gone on, maybe Liam has come to realise that as well. And I think that it may be just a longer project, 2 years, 3 years. The raw materials are all there, always have been in Tipperary, but there definitely seems to be something in the foundations that aren't quite as solid. And Wexford, I think, are the opposite to that at the moment. We're performing probably just about at our best, if not even above it, and we're getting those performances every day. So, looking at it from that point of view, I think we're in very good shape. But part of me thinks, who do you think you are? The arrogance of that with the tradition that Tipperary have too. So it's on hard facts of what's going on at the moment. I think we're in the driving seat.
Plenty of debate, obviously, about Wexford style, and Davies had his say on it as well. He says it's not defensive style, that when needs be that they'll commit plenty of players forward as well. It's a point that Derek McGrath takes on in, it might be the Examiner this morning, and saying that he essentially backs that up to say there's no reason to suggest that's the case. What's your take on Wexford style, Diarmuid, and how that plays out obviously this weekend against Tip?
Wexford style, I would have said lack thereof early on, to be honest. And I wrote a couple of articles, I think, even for Off the Ball about it, the defensive system and the sweeper system, and this idea of having to have 4 and 5 backs on top of 2 or 3 forwards because of a lack of trust in the backs. And I felt that was a very defensive way of looking at the game, and the possession-based game is a little bit more defensive and fearful, kind of. And I didn't really like seeing that coming into the game. But I will say, as time has gone on, and the more, like what Davey keeps saying, is people aren't analysing the game properly. And I can remember playing the game for long enough where people would be saying, oh, this is what's happening on the field. And on the field, it seemed like it was the total opposite of what was happening as to what people were saying. So as the more Davey has spoken about it, he's not saying... And Derek was the same. Derek McGrath was the same. They were like, look, you're just not quite seeing what's happening. And the freedom that they definitely have, I mean, against Tipperary in the league, Kevin Foley come up for a great point, and he obviously has that as the sweeper. But Liam Ryan, even at full back, the Rex in the corners, Simon Donoghue, those guys have given permission to go upfield. Matt O'Hanlon, they have to time it. They have to time that well, obviously, but they are encouraged to move, and they keep talking themselves about the expression, the freedom, the time they have, the enjoyment that they have. It's given them something that we haven't had, and the certainty of it in the first couple of years, maybe where you just don't get as many hammerings, and then you get to build a bit of confidence, is definitely a tactic. But in time, they've gone more forward, they've pushed more forward, it's more attacking, and it's not the sitting back that I probably felt that it was early on. So I can see definitely where it's going, and the effectiveness of it.
On a purely stylistic point of view, it seems that Laois and Wexford aren't a million miles apart, Diarmuid. I'm not sure, is that fair to say? And Tipperary obviously struggled in certain areas of that encounter with Laois. Does that give Davy a lot of hope?
I think so. I think both Laois and Limerick, actually, the difference with Limerick obviously is that we don't have the sheer scale of them in terms of talent and physical strength to take the ball from the back, work it out, time the runs, play off the shoulder, break the tackle. I think that's the big thing, though, and it's that ability to break the tackle. I think that's why Limerick are the best in the country at doing it. I think that's why Laois are up and coming. They're a little bit earlier into it. They've battened down the hatches to some degree, so they're not shipping as much water. But now they're starting to come out a little bit. Limerick have that in the extreme. They've been doing it for a longer period of time, and I think that just that ability to break the tackle in every single line is the big difference that they have. They just have that confidence all the time. Wexford have it. They're coming off the shoulder a little bit better. I thought during the league early on, in particular, they were doing very, very well. Started the championship, not so much fluidity, but definitely coming back in the Kilkenny game in the Leinster final. So yeah, I see the comparisons. I think we're on different scales. Hopefully, I think that we're a little bit ahead of Laois, and so you'd hope that we cause more problem. And looking at what Colin Bonner was talking about during the week as well, I seen the Nina Guardian was saying about that the intensity, and I think that's where it separates it. That intensity. If Wexford have. It's taken a long time to get to this intensity. I could never figure out, looking at Kilkenny, Tipperary, Galway, how they played this intensity. And we'd be training hard, and then you come out against me like, geez, we're just not in the same. We're not on the same planet as these guys in terms of intensity. They're just so far ahead. But Davy has gotten that out of Wexford hugely, and every game that they're playing at the moment, they're hugely intense. The intensity is higher than it ever has been before. So I think when you've got the confidence and the strength to break the line, and everybody around you is playing with an intensity that they're both supporting you, but also if it breaks down, that they're straight back in on the man, and you've got 2 and 3, that Kilkenny style swarm tackling straight in on the breakdown. I think that Tipperary, if they're not on full tilt, 90-95%, that standard that they eke out at their best. If they're not at that, I think Wexford are going to beat them.
Who's going to win it?
Yeah, I'm hopeful, Adrian. I think we're in going on past performances to date. The rhythm of the year. Early on, obviously Tipperary became, well, not obviously, but for me they became the favourites quite early on. I thought Limerick weren't going to get as much out of themselves, but that definitely seems to have slid, and I have to ask the question as to why they've slid. And so I'm hoping that that's probably a little bit of a chink in their armour. For Wexford, the danger is we've given a huge amount, and as time goes on, then this has been a factor in Davies' management career maybe before, where there's just been a huge output for a certain period of time, and then you go off a cliff. But I think since you haven't won the Leinster final, we took that gamble, and those extra couple of weeks maybe give a bit of restoration to the lads. So I think we'll be coming into it. We're definitely coming into it on riding a wave. I hope it's not like a Mayo wave where like we get a little bit too carried away with ourselves. But it's definitely, I don't get that sense of it, and we're just kind of serious about our hurling again in Wexford, and it's great. So I think we're going to win it.
Very good, and certainly listening to the players, it backs up all of that, I would say, in terms of their seems to be still a very fresh approach to it, that it doesn't have that Jose Mourinho style effect, I suppose, that you're mentioning there. Let's talk about the other game. Obviously Limerick Kilkenny, 6 o'clock tomorrow at Croke Park. Limerick obviously looking to get back-to-back All-Irelands for the first time in 45 years. Is there a case to be made, Diarmuid, that Kilkenny are only in the Final Four because Cork were below par, or actually in your view are Kilkenny deserving of their place in the top 4 in the country?
Yeah, that's the question, Adrian. that's the question. I mean, I couldn't answer it, because I know with Kilkenny, I know why they're there is because they have that standard set out every day, and they reach it. And I know the players are. There's just, it constantly seems to happen in sentences, even trying to describe Kilkenny, is there's just an automatic comparison to the way things were a couple of like 5 or 6 years ago, but they still do have, whereas they don't have the standard of player, I don't think they certainly have that same honesty and genuineness as Brian Cody describes it. And so I think you're always going to, if you don't maybe meet that head on, if the other team don't have that head on. Now, I'm not saying Cork don't have that genuineness, but I think that they are liable to slip up and down a little bit, and I think that they definitely weren't at their best. And so if that genuineness meets something that isn't at its best, I think it's just going to win all day, even though Cork probably have I'd say, yeah, I think Cork have better hurlers, probably up front anyway. Maybe I'm not sure at the back about that, but I think they're deserving of their place for what they bring. I think they bring a simplicity to the game that is, it's admirable to be able to eke simplicity out in a game like hurling, and they do that, and they do it with their own very certain specific characteristics and traits, and they're deserving of their place. But yeah, Cork probably on paper could if they play Kilkenny tomorrow, beat them. I wouldn't say easily, but they definitely have the capabilities to beat them. Probably four times out of 6, maybe half the time. I'd say a little bit more than half the time. They definitely would. They definitely should be getting it one over on that Kilkenny team, because I don't think they're. Yeah, they're still going to be hard to beat, and Limerick are going to find it hard to beat them too.
Is it as simple then as saying that Limerick have much better backs than Cork do, and therefore Richie Hogan and TJ Reid just won't have as much time and space as they did in the All-Ireland quarter-final?
Oh, they definitely are not. Yeah, they're definitely not going to own. I mean, TJ Reid, it's like Kieran MacDonald, Conor McDonald, Kieran McDonald from Mayo, Maurice Fitzgerald. I mean, these players find time and space around them. So I don't know about that with TJ Reid. They seem to be able to create space. The great players seem to be able to create space all the time. To do things that he'll want to do with the players around him, I think will be a different thing. There definitely won't be the same space in the forward line, anything like it. So Limerick will be closing them down at an intensity level that I'm just not sure. It didn't suit them when Wexford were doing it at a very high intensity, and I think this is Wexford up a gear, unquestionably, if not two. So I think they're definitely going to struggle with that. They're being met with their own honesty and intensity, I think, and they're also being met with a higher skill level, higher capability. So I don't think Kilkenny. I don't think they can beat Limerick if Limerick perform.
It's pretty big rubber stamping of their credentials. Then Tommy Welsh was actually agreeing with you yesterday. There does seem to be kind of an inclination about Kilkenny in certain areas. Is this all based on history? Like, I'm feeling myself in my gut that Kilkenny actually might do this at the weekend, but I'm struggling to actually come up with a real tangible reason or reasons why they can actually do it. Are we getting too carried away by the kind of aura of Brian Cody?
I don't know. I'm kind of with you on it in a way, Owen. It's like all of a sudden, in a very short time, like I've often thought anytime Limerick played Kilkenny, I'd be thinking Limerick always kind of mess up at the end. You know, Limerick can't carry it through. And Kilkenny are the total utter opposite. They will be with it right until the end and most likely get through. So even when Limerick have had probably better teams than Kilkenny in the past, they've always been very slow to back them against Kilkenny. This doesn't seem to even be coming into it with this Limerick team. There's not a question of them having that a pedigree where they might not be able to get over the line the same way as in 94, 96 or back the years when Limerick threw away almost certain All-Irelands. So I don't know. They just seem to be getting... There isn't. You couldn't really point to many days. Okay, early in the league, maybe not. But as time has gone on, they've increased they've hit the standards time and time again, and they seem to be getting better. Is there a possibility of fatigue? I don't know. They just don't seem to be in that place. They seem to have. John Kiley seems to have them very, very balanced. And I don't know where. I couldn't see where it would come from, bar Tipperary or Limerick falling apart to some degree in their performance, and I don't know where that would come from, because they have their lines right, they've got their system right, their players seem to be on form that they need that govern the system. I don't see where it would come from, but that's you were still only talking about probably 4, 5, 6 points. Like, you know, that's in a game of hurling, that's still only 2 strokes of the ball, so there's possibilities, but I don't know where. I don't know where do you see it coming from, Owen? Why do you think Kilkenny could beat them? Like, I wonder.
Just because they're Kilkenny, really. Once you look deeper into it, it's like all the evidence available to us suggests that Limerick are more than 6 point favourites. I don't know what the handicap is, but maybe even the handicap takes into account the fact that this is Kilkenny. And what did Kilkenny do against Cork? Well, they were Kilkenny, and not many people saw that coming.
Yeah. That's it. They're going to be there. Like, they're going to be at the standard in terms of intensity. And hurling played at a certain level of intensity and a certain level of integrity is a very simple, very beautiful game. And can you bring that and have brought that pretty much every day they've played in the last 20 years under Brian Cody? And I mean, that's an incredible feat. And so they're definitely going to do it again. And if they any chinks that they meet, they just explode, and they're seen for what they are. So this time last year, playing against Limerick, you're asking questions. Limerick, there's a few doubts about themselves, and they may have those, but I think they've been ironed out now in the past year, and they've got a confidence that's. I don't know. I can't see it, but I do see what you're saying.
There's an interesting piece of Colin Keys written in the Indo today as well, just about the number of players that Kilkenny have used over the years, and Tommy Welch actually spoke about it in the context of the minors during the week, about how much of a closed shop Kilkenny once was, whereas now actually he needs to cast the net a bit wider. And it's actually a tremendous reflection on Cody that's exactly what he's done, that he's tweaked that over the last couple of years from a place that he once was. So there's that context to it as well. Does it almost go without saying, as we wrap on it, Diarmuid, that this would be his greatest achievement as Kilkenny manager if they were to go ahead and win the All-Ireland?
Above a 4 in a row.
As one-off achievement.
Yeah, probably. Just even like, I mean, you can't even mention the 4 in a row without thinking about the unbelievable standards of player that he was dealing with at the time. Now, how much he had to play in the formation of that, I suppose, is part of that question as well. But I think that, I think this is definitely you end up being critical of the team, and it's not fair to them. They're not in semi-final, to say that they're not of a certain standard. They are of a certain standard, but to beat Limerick with the emotion of the way things are going, it'll be phenomenal, and you definitely wouldn't put it past Brian Cody as a manager.
Diarmuid, a pleasure as always. Enjoy the games.
Yeah, thanks very much, lads. It's been Croker on Sunday, and can't wait for it.
We'll chat to you soon. Diarmuid Lyng on the line there. WildIrishRetreat.com if you want to check out a bit more about Diarmuid and some of his retreats as well. Well worth checking all of that out. So it is 8:30, just gone on this Friday morning. We're delighted to have you along with us. We've plenty more to come. We're going to talk Tour de France with Ross Tucker very shortly. We're going to talk about the week that was for Sheahan, Lowry, and cricket as well with Niall O'Brien. So all of that coming your way. But Brian O'Driscoll and Malcolm O'Kelly are two Irish rugby legends. They sat down recently to reminisce about the 1999 Rugby World Cup. It was all but thanks to Vodafone, the official sponsor of the Irish rugby team. You're going to enjoy it.
Shoulder to Shoulder with Malcolm O'Kelly.
Oh, where did you pull that one from?
Favourite actor?
Al Pacino.
Oh, close. Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro.
Yeah. What car were you driving?
Rover.
A Mondeo.
Mondeo.
Last book you read. This is the biggest lie ever. But what did you say?
I don't know what I said. I'd say it was not a biography.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Favourite party piece?
Favourite party piece? Oh my God. I don't know how honest I am in here. This could be very worrying. But I was liable to do anything back then. No, come on, tell me.
Singing Rolling Stones songs very badly.
That was my first cap I sung, Simply for the Devil. That reminds me of that particular World Cup. We had obviously we likes of Justin Fitzpatrick, Dave Humphreys, and lots of guys who didn't know the national anthem. And we we did a phonetics national anthem, and we got the guys up in the bus to sing the national anthem. So we had Justin Fitzpatrick singing it, Ross Nesdale singing it. It was shiny bacon foil is the first line I can remember.
They were giving them a bad steer, weren't they? Like Sheena Fianna Fáil, shiny bacon foil. They really could have done them a better paper there, a better solid than that, surely.
They probably could have singing anything phonetically. You may as well sing the national anthem phonetically. Nobody really knows what it means anyway.
So yeah, that was our sit down with Big Mal and Brian O'Driscoll. It was a great chat. The full piece is up on our YouTube channel, and I highly recommend you check it out. It was a really interesting piece reminiscing on the 1999 Rugby World Cup that was. You can check out that full video, as I said, youtube.com/offtheball, or the full 40-minute podcast, indeed, live now over at offtheball.com/podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Everyone is in the team of us. So that is the rugby. Do go and check that out. We've cricket to come with Niall O'Brien, but before all of that, I'm delighted to say we're turning our attention to cycling, to the Tour de France, and Ross Tucker joins us on the line. Ross, obviously into the good morning to you first of all. Race moved into the Alps yesterday. Julian Alaphilippe continues out in front, 1:30 back to his pursuance now from Team Ineos. Not in the top 10 favourites I looked at before pre-race. Who is this guy, Ross, and has he now won the race, or is there some sort of possibility with a couple of big stages to come that he gets sucked back into the pack here?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you raised that he wasn't in the top 10 favourites, because I was actually going to ask you that. He's obviously a bit enigmatic to people who don't follow the sport too closely, but for about the last 4 or 5 years, he's been one of the most dominant short stage and short tour races and single day race riders in the peloton. He started out, I think, in 2015 winning stages. He's won the Tour of California, which is a 1 week long race. He's had a couple of top sixes at races like the Dauphiné, which is a big prep race for the Tour de France. He's won stages in the Tour, he's won stages in the Vuelta, he's worn the King of the Mountains jersey, he's worn the Young Riders jersey. So he's got some pedigree behind him. But of course, nobody was thinking this was the man who, heading into the final weekend of the Tour, was going to be in yellow. So it is another surprise. The last few first-time winners of the Tour de France have been surprising. I'd say he's the least surprising of the lot because he's got a degree of pedigree. He's an explosive climber. He's built like a climber. I think he weighs in the low 60 kilograms. So that certainly predisposes him to going uphill well. As to whether he's going to hold on, is he the favourite? I get the impression that he's teetering on the edge and the finish line of this race can't come soon enough for him. I think that the next few days will just he's surprised everyone up to this point, so who knows. But I have a feeling that the high altitude today and the mountaintop finish and then tomorrow's long climb will do for him, and he will probably not hold on to it, but we'll see.
We're all obviously somewhat obsessed with the former Team Sky, Team Ineos over this part of the world. So it was kind of that I was most interested in to some degree to speak about. And Eoin Bernal did make some ground yesterday. Geraint Thomas stayed in the same bunch as the Frenchman in the run-in yesterday. Was there any surprise that Ineos haven't been more aggressively almost trying to eat into this lead?
Yeah, I just don't think they've had the watch this year. In the past 5 or 6 years where they have won and dominated the Tour de France, they've just thrown 4 or 5 guys at the bottom of the final climb, and they've kept the pace at a level where no one else can match and compete and attack. And it seems to me that those support riders are disappearing much sooner this year than they were before. So the scenario in the last few years has been with 2 or 3 kilometers to go, Ineos or Sky back then are still in a position of strength. This year, they've really only got their 2 leaders left. And so that has changed the dynamic of the race. There's no doubt that other teams have had opportunities that in the past they wouldn't have had. So that has been something of a surprise. I don't know why that is. I mean, on a technical point of view, for the last decade, people have been trying to measure the performances, estimate the watts and so forth. But there's still no direct measurement coming out of it. So is the peloton at the front moving 2% faster, and as a result, Ineos can't put 5 guys in it? Or is the pace the same and they're weaker? I genuinely don't know. But for whatever reason, it's created an open race, a more open race than there has been in the past, and that has been, certainly watching it, much more entertaining.
For sure, and you could say that it's a more open race because Chris Froome isn't there. Granted, he didn't win it last year, but he certainly helped Team Sky hold their stranglehold over the rest of the peloton in the Tour de France. Like you say, the lack of data that we have, it's very kind of loose when you do throw out times and climbing times and all that sort of thing, but it is the only thing we can really go off. And yesterday, Quintana, I think, set the record for the fastest ascent up the Galibier, I think beating Schleck's record from 2011 or something like that. So, like, we do have records being set. We do still have evidence that the Tour de France is not getting any slower. In fact, it's going the opposite way.
No, it's quick. It's quick. And obviously there's a margin of error here because of the circumstances and the conditions around each climb individually. But collectively, we're seeing cyclists today at the same level they were. You see, they're not quite at the same level they were in the mid to late 90s and the early 2000s. But certainly since about 2003-04, the Tour has stayed at more or less the same level with a couple of drops. This year is not one of those. And so, yeah, yesterday Quintana was faster. The first big mountain stage, when they finished on that gravel section, that was incredibly fast, and there were 8, 9 guys, I think, at the front, all riding these unbelievable speeds. So, yeah, it's been quick, but it remains to me a source of frustration that we can't quantify it with more accuracy, because I think it would be really useful to know exactly how quick it is and where it. So for instance, I was looking at the Tourmalet climb from the other day. The first 9 kilometers was a minute slower than it had been done in the past, and the last 5 kilometers was a minute faster. So maybe the way it's being raced has changed. It's more conservative. They start slower, they finish harder. So there's a lot of detail in the performance data that we are, I think, currently missing. And that makes it difficult to arrive at any, not conclusion, but even a hypothesis.
Do you know if there's any appetite from cycling authorities to make this data compulsory to reveal, perhaps? I know that's perhaps a step too far. Team Sky previously said it's not something they're interested in, but like, it's been publicised that there was doping checks done in the early hours of yesterday morning. Cyclists not happy about that, but it's convenient that that story is being pushed out there so that we, the public, know that there is a lot of testing going on in this tour. Surely just releasing more data would help that to no end, Ross.
Yeah, I'm biased because I'm a data guy, obviously. But for me, you collect data today because you don't even necessarily have to know what purpose it will serve in a couple of years. But just for the sake of good record keeping, you should have that data. I mean, obvious example, Thibaut Pinot is if Alaphilippe is not going to win this tour, Pinot is probably one of the two favourites to win it. Him plus Egan Bernal. Now, Pinot's been around for years, and he's been consistently challenging in the mountains, but never quite good enough to take the next step. If he does it this year, the question I think would be quite interesting is, has he found 2% extra, or has everyone else just come back to him? Now, you can't answer that question, so we're left to speculate. Now, when the teams say we don't want to put our power data there because then you'll know our performance capabilities, I find that nonsense, because my other really top sport is track and field, and if I'm in a 100-meter race against Usain Bolt, I know to the 100th of a second what I have to do. It doesn't help me do it. I mean, knowing that Usain Bolt's going to run 9.71 seconds is not going to help me beat the guy. So how does knowing that the front of the peloton is moving at 5.8 watts a kilogram for 25 minutes going to help me do it if I don't have the capacity? But anyway, point is, I think that the sport would be much better off if it actually provided data. We have this conversation every year about transparency, not just about anti-doping, but around performances and so forth. So
why do they not want to reveal it? Like, what's the official? Is there any utterances from them as to why this would not be something that they'd be happy just to give out?
Well, logistics and cost, I think, are primary among them, which I understand, because different teams use different power meters, and the UCI is not going to impose a standardized one on them. And if they don't, then you have to ask questions around the calibration and so forth of data. And so these are challenges. I don't think they're insurmountable challenges. Formula One gets data from its cars, and it's probably 10 times more sophisticated and advanced. So it can be done, but that's one of them. And the other one is I just think there's no appetite for it. They don't see the point, and I understand to some extent that, because they want to stamp collect. But I do think there are questions. You know, in 2010, 2011, we were asking the same questions, and we'll be asking them in 2028 because no one's doing anything to change the status quo. So Alaphilippe is a great example. Or everyone in Britain is saying, "Oh, this guy's transformation is unbelievable. How is this possible?" But what are you questioning? Do you know the size of the thing you're questioning? No.
Like, as somebody who's watched this in a very detailed manner, and it's interesting that you bring up the British reaction to this. His performance is less surprising from the base he's come from than, say, Chris Froome, for sure. Is it less surprising than Geraint Thomas?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. Thomas was more pedigreed than Froome, and Froome probably, well, Wiggins at least had an Olympics track pursuit background. But Alaphilippe is look, I'm still surprised that he's there. I didn't expect him to be there, and I wouldn't have picked him in the top 10 either. But his last 4 or 5 years has been among the most spectacular in the sport. It's surprising that he's managed to generate and sustain that level over 3 weeks and over the scale of the climbs that he has. But this is not the outrageous alien transformation we've seen from riders in the past. So it's just typical, classic example of how people's perceptions of the facts are colored by what they want those facts to tell them. And that's exactly what's happening now, you know. So the same transformation, or an even lesser transformation, is now suddenly suspicious, whereas for the last 5 or 6 years it's been down to advancements in nutrition and technology and training.
Can I ask you just one slight sidebar question, Ross, on the overall sort of race positions and the position particularly of Team Ineos? Is that seen as a shortcoming of the riders in this instance, or is there blame to be laid at the door of Dave Brailsford here? Is it tactical versus individual performance, I guess?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the causes are. I mean, reality is that in Bernal and Thomas, they've still got 2 podium places, which any team would have taken at the start of the race. So this is difficult to criticize them for. What they haven't been able to exert is the same level of total control over the races in the past. And you can probably dissect 3 or 4 reasons for that. Injuries, the loss of Froome, having to adjust their plan when that happened. Remember, Bernal was supposed to ride in Italy, and then illness put paid to that, or an injury. And so they had to probably readjust the plan. So in hindsight, when people sit down to do post-mortems, they'll probably find 5 things that couldn't be controlled and 2 or 3 that might have been. They'll blame the expulsion of Luke Rowe for part of these names. No, so I don't know. Someone eventually is accountable, of course, for every performance, but I just think they haven't had the watts to control the race in the way that they have in the past. You know, tactics is easy when you can just put 5 guys on the front who go faster than everyone else.
Yeah, it's true. Just one last thing before we let you go, Ross, because it's a story that's gone around the world this week. It was Sun Yang, and then you had the scenes of Duncan Scott and Matt Horton refusing to share a podium with him. He's somebody who's served a 3-month ban, refused to give a urine sample recently. You can talk about omerta in cycling. It seems that the opposite thing is happening in swimming circles.
Yeah, so speaking also of how nationalist biases colour perceptions, that's been really interesting to watch, because the China versus Australia or China versus the West arguments have really hotted up. I posted a video and I didn't even comment on the validity or the merits of the protest, and for the next 3 days I had fights going on in Chinese and English on my timeline on Twitter. So people get very fired up around patriotic reasons. It seems quite clear to me that swimming has very little anti-doping credibility. I can't think of many bans in swimming over the last decade. You know, we sit and criticize cycling and track and field, but at least they're catching people. Now, I don't for a second believe that swimmers are all clean, and yet swimming hardly ever catches its own athletes. So I think that Sun Yang is emblematic of a problem with the anti-doping system. Now, what's happened is he's got this previous 3-month ban, which people already see as slightly lenient, because that was reduced for not technicalities, but because he was able to convince them that it wasn't deliberate cheating. People are always suspicious over that. And then he has this incident revealed where he's taken a hammer to his blood samples, which is, I can't think of an act that screams guilt more than doing that. It's unbelievable. But when you read the specific legal decision, because FINA convenes this panel, they rationalize his behavior as the result of understandable paranoia, lack of confidence in the testers. He didn't believe the accreditation. They didn't manage to make him see that destroying his samples would land him in trouble. And so step by step, they move aside all these reasons why this behavior should be punished, and they say you can continue to swim. Now, when that happens, Sun Yang obviously is the catalyst or the symptom, but the condition is the credibility and the structure of anti-doping, and that's what the swimmers should be protesting. And I think it's great that they're doing it. I just don't. It doesn't sit comfortably with me that they're focusing their protest on that specific person, when really the thing that's let them down is the anti-doping system.
All right, Ross, thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Sure, no worries. Always good to chat. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We'll speak soon. Ross Tucker on the line there to chat all things swimming and Tour de France as well. It's a fair point about the tactics, because it was one thing that jumped out at me, and the reason I asked the question, which was what I should have said, was that Geraint Thomas was the pre-race favourite, and then obviously he's some way back, and depending on who you read, they're either still in with a bit of a chance of doing it, or actually Alaphilippe is just it's already done, actually, in some instances.
They had their chance yesterday.
Yeah.
And he refused to be the team player, it seemed. To not hang back and allow Bernal to go after Alaphilippe it just seems like really, really poor management. And I don't know if that's Brailsford's instruction to him saying, you do whatever you want, Geraint. You can go, you're the Tour de France champion, you can do whatever you want. But that just doesn't tally with what happened last year, which is when Froome allowed Thomas to go and actually win the Tour de France and take the yellow jersey off him. So it's extraordinary.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on in the background. But the point about it just struck me that it's a perfectly reasonable point about tactics versus whatever riders you have. It's like put the best footballers in the world in a team. You get the best team, like.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, we're going to leave that one for the minute. Just 10 to 9 on this Friday morning. We're going to talk to Niall O'Brien in a few minutes' time about the potential of Irish success at Lords. We're going to see get his predictions ahead of that. Is it the greatest Irish sport? Would it be the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time? Will be chief amongst the topics we're going to talk to Niall about. John Duggan is going to join us in the studio to talk to us about the week that was for Shane Lowry as well, and plenty more things besides. So before all of that, a few weeks ago, a few of us here in Team Off the Ball, with thanks to Horse Racing Ireland, I got to experience something pretty cool. We were given a horse for the day as the Aidan McGuinness trained Ozzy Valentine represented the Off the Bridle. Was it Off the Bridle or On the Bridle?
On the Bridle.
The On the Bridle
I thought
Syndicate.
it should have been Off the Bridle.
It really should have been. The On the Bridle Syndicate at Leopardstown. There was Gerard, Tom Malone was there, John Duggan and Eoin was there as well, all involved. And here's what's happened.
Met Miss Lindy, she's a gal with the bright red hair. Now she stands out from all the rest. You know her anywhere.
This beauty here is Ozzy Valentine. We're out in Aidan McGuinness's yard. We're going to go down to the beach now to have a look and see exactly what the benefits of having a yard right beside the sea can do for the horses. Because this horse is going to be our horse for one afternoon only on the 11th of July at Leopardstown in a race that we think he's got a chance of winning. But actually, if he doesn't win, I don't mind because I've just fallen in love with the horse anyway. So
we're building up a nice relationship with Ozzy Valentine. Only a small amount of time before he does eventually trust you.
It's a great, easy, relaxing day for them. The water is great for their legs, their joints, their muscles. It's nice cold water, and it's brilliant. It takes swelling, aches and pains.
It's a recovery session for horses.
The recovery session. It's a bit like a recovery session for them. The number 5 is Ozzy Valentine, that's your boy, and he's a horse that we've had. He's been very lucky, and he's worked wonders since he came here.
How's he looking this morning?
He looks great. Had a run last Sunday on the Curragh, but he got over it very well, and he's grubbed up well, and he's been down here twice since. A horse like him he's fit as a flea. It's up to me to know when to do a certain amount with him and not do too much with him. And these days aren't very, very hard on them, so they're a lovely day to get them away to the beach, and you're not killing them, yet they're happy to come back home, they eat up well, and they're enjoying life. It's a great experience for an owner to be involved, and especially it's the feature race of the day, so it's a bigger experience than it's not just the first race in the card, so it's the main event of the day, so it'll be super.
So this is a big day for us. We've got the access all areas, trainers and owners badges. It was a special moment in your sporting life, and you're like, I get to. So for not much investment on our part, we've managed to land in here, and it's like we're looking the part. Well, one of us is anyway.
Yeah, I look like an owner. He looks like a Wall Street executive. This is the most love I've ever felt, getting this owners and trainers badge. I cannot wait for tonight, seeing Ozzy Valentine crush the field. And we found John Duggan. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Leopardstown, sun, Thursday night, live music later on. Can't wait.
So talk to us about Ozzy Valentine. Apparently he loves this ground.
Ozzy Valentine, the 725 at Leopardstown in the colours of the On the Bridle Syndicate. Off the Ball have taken over a horse this evening.
Why didn't they call it Off the Bridle?
Well, because we want to be on the bridle in life.
Yeah, we do.
You don't
it's just a name.
You don't be struggling after a furlong here at Leopardstown in this race. So it's just a great experience to have a horse for the evening, to see how syndicates work, to see the trainer Adrian McGuinness and the jockey Gavin Ryan works with Jim Bulger and the best claimer in the country. So we're kind of cautiously optimistic about Ozzy Valentine, that we might be hoopering and hollering, Eoin. We might be screaming, you might be taking your shirt off, might be doing all kinds of things if Ozzy Valentine strikes the front in this 1 mile, 2.5 furlong race.
He's a relentless galloper, and that's exactly what we've got to do with him, and he'll stay galloping.
He just stays at it, doesn't he?
He stays at it, so you don't want to turn into a crawl. I think you've got to make your mind up coming off the bend, so to say, go forward rather than turn into a sprint.
Perfect, that's 100%, yeah.
How do you play Ozzy Valentine?
They're grazed and they're off. And it's Ozzy Valentine going on half a length in front. Ozzy Valentine is there on towards the finish. But getting known as Wilderness Runner from Inverary, Wetwood, Hamley, and then Tudor City Antilles. An awakening Ozzy Valentine.
Look, there's no pace and turned into a bit of a sprint, you know.
He stayed at it. He just stayed at it one pace, but he hasn't run too bad, you know.
That's it. Well, thanks very much.
As long as he's safe and sound in the morning, that's all. That's what matters to us. So that's horse racing.
Yeah. I felt differently owning a horse for a night than I would be backing a horse, even with a grand on or something. Not that I'm backing a grand. I never even got to say goodbye to that grand. Like, it just really felt like we had one of our children there, out there in Leopardstown this evening. Just there's a different kind of buzz out of that.
Standing in Leopardstown on a Thursday night in July with one of your horses in the race, turning around the bend, heading for home. That was one of those amazing experiences.
Yeah, well, thanks to the HRI, check out goracing.ie. Did you write him a letter or anything?
No, just I'll see you when I see you, Ozzy. That sort of thing.
That was the line of the piece. I never even got to say goodbye to him.
Well, I'll have to see where he's running next time and put some money on him and rekindle our friendship.
John, good morning to you.
Adrian and Eoin, how are you today?
Great. Looked like a savage day out.
It's great to see what it's like to actually... I've been backing horses and involved in horse racing as a journalist for 20 years, but to actually own a horse for a day was something different. To see the whole process of saddling them up, making sure the horse is calm, then getting them quickly to the parade ring, the jockey, then the chat with the jockey beforehand, the actual race itself, and then the debrief afterwards, the colours. And you do feel a bit more of a paternal attachment to the situation than you would if it's a fiver and then it's just pretty much gone. You have more care for something that actually is yours for even a short period of time. So it is an insight into what it is like to own a horse. And I say the beautiful, like imagine if it had won, you would have been all going mad. And I think that's the dream for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you can check out goracing.ie if you want to get involved in syndicates. It's, as John says, a lovely way to spend an afternoon. So goracing.ie if you want to check out more on that. John, we have you in for a couple of different reasons, but primarily because the piece that you've written for offtheball.com this week was our top performing piece of the week. So this is a new feature for us. So no pressure on you. You've got to make this work. Otherwise, it'll never see the light of day again. But your piece was the top performing piece on the website this week. It sort of was a summation of your experience of a fairly cool couple of days.
Well, it was, Adrian, and I think that Shane Lowry's win at the Open Championship was a real symbolic landmark for Irish sport. I think it was one of the greatest days we've ever had in Irish sport, and I think his win is an inspiration to young people that are playing sport or consuming sport or love the discipline of sport and the passion of sport. And I just thought that Shane Lowry signified how any young person can be the next Shane Lowry through hard work and through perseverance and a little bit of talent. You could be the next Brian O'Driscoll, Katie Taylor, Annalise Murphy, Stephen Cluxton, Henry Shefflin. If you have a good support network, if you've got great work ethic and a little bit of talent to follow your dream. Shane Lowry did not know Padraig Harrington when Padraig won his first Open. Shane was 20 years of age. He was an amateur golfer. 2 years later, he won the Irish Open as an amateur in his first tournament. That in itself was a fairy tale. But a bigger fairy tale was his win at the Open on the island of Ireland. Significant story in itself that will be here on this island for the first time in 68 years. And that Shane Lowry would win it in a world where we got racism coming out of the White House, where we have Brexit as a real problem and the UK possibly having a bit of a nervous breakdown politically, not as a society, but more so politically. We don't know how that's going to go. And you have quite a forward-looking country, an economically recovered country, and you've seen horrendous, for anybody over 30, you'd remember, Adrian, I don't know if you would own, but obviously I'm sure you would have read about it, horrendous troubles on this island for 25 years, over 3,000 people killed. They had one American three-ball in 1985 at Portrush to have a global sporting major up in Antrim where you've got a reach of 600 million people and an Irish player to win it. It was very symbolic of a Ireland at peace, where peace has been won, and a nation that's unified and progressive.
Yeah.
And it's not about unification politically, it's about unification of humanity and the great things that can happen if you put your mind to it. And I thought we saw that when Shane Lowry was walking up that 18th, spotted his family, spotted his dad, an All-Ireland winner. You can almost say that Shane Lowry in himself is an All-Ireland champion now. His wife, his daughter, his brother, his management, his friends. And after I wrote the article, then I saw Shane Lowry be the soundest person ever, which is not surprising, to give so much of his time generously and to allow well-wishers to lift the claret jug. If I wanted to lift the claret jug, if I was at an open exhibition or whatever, wouldn't he be? I met Patrick Harrington 2 or 3 years ago, wasn't allowed to touch it, and Shane has given people the jug to have a look at it and having a drink with everybody. And I hope now people leave him alone for a bit, just to let him celebrate it in private. But that's why we love him, and I think that's why we related to his victory. And even as he said, people who would not have watched golf last weekend. It was a open top bus style victory.
Yeah, it will be. I think part of the difficulty will be that he so willingly turned on the tap for access and for everybody to allow everybody into the celebration. It's actually going to be difficult for him to turn that off now again, and that's going to be part of the challenge for the next little while. But it was, because I know we tend to, one part of me at some point in the week started thinking that was a lot of the American audience looking at this win in the way that we were kind of looking at Brooks Koepka not that long ago, and it's a bit of a procession ultimately here, and it's kind of done because we're obviously so invested in it. It wasn't for us, it was such a emotionally charged, culturally significant thing. I just wondered how a US audience viewed it. But actually reading a lot of the US reporters who'd been over, I think Brandel Chambly might have written about it, saying that this was one of the greatest majors he's ever seen, or certainly in terms of the storylines behind it that you've touched on. So it has had that significance globally.
Alan Shipnuck wrote a great piece, and I think it was golf.com.
It was Alan Shipnuck, yeah.
And they got it. And most of the time, for Rory or GMAC or even the Americans every day be asking, talk to us about the significance and the symbolism. And of course, the Irish brand is still very popular in America, and there's a huge amount of diaspora over there. So they weren't treating it as a kind of a Blarney fairy tale. They were treating it as a very good golfer who's now got to the next level, who'd won a World Golf Championship event, and I think the story of Shane Lowry fit the narrative of Portrush like a glove, and the Americans saw that. I think the British media saw that as well, when you read the Daily Mail on that. And just things like his granny, who's just great crack. Just the whole thing was just, 10 days ago, we could not have foreseen this story.
No.
I know you guys are talking at the start of the show about the cricket and that, and that's the beauty of sport. That's why I work in this business, because I love the storylines that we don't know about yet, and that Shane Lowry doesn't even know about.
One of those storylines that I wasn't sure about, I read in the, and interested to get your thoughts on it, in the Irish Independent today. Brian Keogh was writing about the great success that's been Adare Manor for 2026, and the hard work and the amount of money that's been spent on it, and that will be spent on it over the next little while. But one of the interesting offshoots in relation to Shane Lowry was that it appears as if himself and McIlroy hadn't spoken for a number of years, and they had met at some sort of pre-Ryder Cup shindig down at Adare Manor where they all get together, and as Brian Keogh had said, they were sort of squirreled off in deep conversation for a long period of time, and that relationship is now fully repaired and back in a great position. And I know McIlroy was saying that they were in, because one of the storylines out of last Sunday was where was Rory? Was he nowhere to be seen in terms of coming up to congratulate him in a way that Graham McDowell was there and Padraig Harrington was there, and Koepka I think was there at the scoring tent, and the guy who's most associated with golf in Northern Ireland was nowhere to be seen, despite being one assumes still in the general area. But it seems like that relationship, and Rory's spoken about the text exchange they'd had afterwards, that relationship is back on track by all accounts, according to Brian Keogh today.
Well, it's important because they're going to be the two golfers at the Olympic Games in Tokyo next year. So it's important that, now it's not a team event, it is still an individual event, but there'll be two golfers, and it'll be likely to be Rory and Shane. So look, we don't know what the ins and outs but up behind the scenes. But to be fair, I don't think Rory McIlroy would have wanted to be anywhere on the weekend at Portrush after what happened to him on Friday night. Friday, I think, took a huge amount out of him emotionally. He was even saying at his press conference in Memphis this week, he was trying hard not to cry 3 or 4 times. So I think that he probably would have got out of there on Friday night. I don't think it's got any relevance or any connection to what Shane Lowry did.
Yeah, all right. Well, look, well done on your piece this week.
Thanks very much, guys. Offtheball.com is where you get the best literature, the best sports news, the best analysis, the best podcasts, the best videos. You got to remember it. Like Muhammad Ali here, offtheball.com.
Clip it up, lads, clip it up. It's a self-made promo piece right there. John, thanks a million. And it'll be a piece that will feature every Friday here on OTBAM. Just 9:05 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us. It is, as promised, time to talk about the cricket. I'm delighted to say that Niall O'Brien joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Niall.
Good morning. How are we all?
Flying it. And your comments on Test Match Special have had us all debating and talking about it here this morning. Plenty of interactions as well. If Ireland win, it's the biggest moment in Irish sporting history, not just cricket. Explain yourself, sir.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, I'm fairly young in age, so I haven't seen every little bit of sporting history, but I'm just thinking the magnitude of an Ireland team playing in their third ever Test match against England, who less than 2 weeks ago won the World Cup at Lords. I just think it's one of the biggest things ever in Irish sporting history. I was reading a lot of the comments and from people and, taking a lot on board, and I looked through a lot of kind of articles and databases this morning because I couldn't really sleep overnight because I was so excited for today's play. And on the survey that was done in 2018, the best sporting moment in Irish history was voted was David O'Leary's penalty against Romania in 1990. So I remember that well, and that was class. Italian 90 was one of my fondest memories as a kid. But if you're telling me Ireland beating England in a Test match at Lords in only the third attempt isn't better than David O'Leary knocking in a penalty in Italy, well, I don't know about that.
That's exactly what Eoin here was saying this morning.
I politely.
Some of the sports mentioned, like maybe Dublin winning the All Ireland, like you can't. I love Gaelic football. Don't get me wrong, I love hurling, but you can't equate, a county beating a county is bigger than Ireland beating England in the Test match of cricket. So I take on comments like Ken Doherty obviously winning and Stephen Roach and things like that. Yeah, 100% get that. But Ireland winning Grand Slams, etc. at Twickenham, yeah, 100%. But it's huge. This would be huge. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough day at the office for Ireland today. England are not going to roll over.
To be fair, I did agree with you on that point, at least earlier on.
He's backtracking now.
Hold on a minute. that winning the 5 in a row wouldn't be as spectacular an achievement, but it's just about the sporting moment that it is. And I'm on the fence a little bit about how the English press are writing about this, because my first thoughts when reading this morning saying, England are only focused on the Ashes or they've got a World Cup hangover, my initial thought was kind of backtracking on them, thinking to myself, well, that's just sour grapes, stop taking away from the Irish achievement. But I wonder, does that temper things a little bit, like going up against a team in a World Cup? I mean, both teams are going gung-ho for this. Does the fact that there is a bit of a World Cup hangover and a pre-Ashes feel to this for England take it away from what they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, maybe, but potentially. I don't really care for what England are thinking or their attitude about it. I'm only concerned about Ireland and what it could do for Ireland. So, I'm working with the English media, and they've been full of praise. They've been also condemning England's performance, and England have been very poor. Even yesterday they had the opportunity to put Ireland to the sword, and they relinquished that hold in the game. So. Something might not quite be right with England after the World Cup. They might be a little bit focused, not quite on the job, but Ireland have capitalised on that. And, you can only be who you're up against. I just think, I stand by my comments. I just think it's huge. If we can win today in cricket circles, this will send shockwaves around the world, and it will give hope to all the other countries that are kind of making their way in the game, the likes of Afghanistan and Scotland. That there's hope for the kind of emerging nations.
For sure, and like earlier on as well, kind of thinking about Bangalore and how that the level that was at and how that sent shockwaves around the world as well. Like for you, is the Lord's element the big element here? Is it the fact that it is in the home of cricket that is what creates the iconic moment in your view, as much as England getting beaten by what they would view to be a minnow of Test cricket?
A little bit, not 100%. I think that has something to do. I just think Test match cricket. I grew up watching Test match cricket on BBC, as I'm sure you guys did. And it is the pinnacle of our sport. You know, one-day cricket, and you know, this is tough for me to say because obviously I've been involved in some of the best Ireland wins in World Cups and at the forefront of some of those wins, and my brother has been at the forefront. But winning a Test match takes a lot more hard work than winning a one-day game, and even a lot more work than winning a T20 international. So, you know, winning a Test match, any Test match actually, would probably rank over an ODI win. So, especially the third attempt, it's such a tough game. Test cricket is such a tough game, mentally, physically. Yes, there was 38 degrees for those lads out there playing. They keep coming back and back, and credit to the captain. I thought the skipper Porterfield marshalled his troop brilliantly, and the lads showed unbelievable desire. Because they could have thrown the towel in. They could have said, you know what, England are 170 for one here. We're on their back foot. We had a great day yesterday, but it's not going according to plan. And the towel could have went in, but they didn't. They kept plugging away. And this morning, there's nerves about. I must say, I spoke with a few of the boys this morning. There's a few nerves kicking around the dressing room. So I'm hoping they can overcome those nerves. Not many teams chase over 175 in the last innings at Lords and win a Test match. So if they do it, that's even more credit to the boys.
Can Ireland do it, Niall?
180. Yesterday morning when I was on BBC, I said 180. They'll be happy with 180. Well, England have got 181 in front, so we need to get this last wicket fairly pronto this morning, get batting. And there's a chance for someone to make themselves an absolute superstar. If they do win it, and I think they can, it's going to be tough. It's going to be nervy. It won't be a comfortable chase, but I'm backing O'Brien Jr. to be there at the end, 40 not out, winning the game for Ireland.
Just finally, I was listening to, obviously, Test Match Special yesterday. Michael Vaughan was saying that there wasn't much pace, spin, bounce from the Irish attack. It was very much more about poor England side. There been a bit of condescension about the coverage of this Irish side?
No, I don't. No, I work with Michael a lot. I don't think he meant it that way. I just think it's not an attack that England would be fearful of in terms of pace or, you know, trickery. There's no wrist spinner. You know, there's no Shane Warne or Rashid Khan. It's an attack that Michael Vaughan was condemning of England's batting. Actually, he said, listen, they should have been dominating this bowling lineup. You know, 85 all out was terrible. He actually felt they batted worse yesterday because they had good conditions and they had the opportunity to bat big. So, not really. I think Michael Vaughan likes to get the knife in wherever he can for a bit of publicity.
Well, look, I hope we are having the debate about whether or not it is the greatest Irish sporting moment of all time after the close of play. So,
well,
yeah,
good man. Thanks a lot.
Hopefully, it plays out the way. Niall, thanks a million for taking the call.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Former Irish cricketer Niall O'Brien on the line there, ahead of today's action at Lords. And yeah, there's every reason to hope we can get it done on.
Yeah, hopefully.
Have the debate again on Monday morning.
Let's hope so. As he says, we need that last man out very early this morning.
All right, 12 minutes past 9 this morning at OTBAM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Will O'Callaghan in studio next with the sports news and the latest edition of Deal or No Deal.
Let's face it, the Irish summer has serious commitment issues. It's always late, disappears for weeks at a time, and consistently breaks its promises. But not us. At Electric Ireland, we're committed to giving you an 8.5% saving on your gas and electricity year after year after year after year. Visit electricireland.ie/join for the kind of commitment you deserve.
Estimated annual bill €1,736. Average consumption, urban 24-hour, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax. Residential, dual fuel, direct debit and online billing. Terms and conditions apply. See electricireland.ie/EAB. Rates at 1st of April 2019, subject to change.
All right, well, good morning to you.
Morning, how are things, lads?
Flying it?
Yeah,
Irish,
absolutely.
Greatest Irish sporting moment of all time. And we're on the brink of it.
I heard this debate earlier, whether it's achievement or whether it's moment.
Having it, not having it.
I don't know. Look, here's the thing. If Ireland chase down England, realistically it's going to be somewhere around 200 runs. That would be in the top 4 chases in Lords in Test cricket history, which would maybe put it in context a little bit what the achievement would be. As Eoin was saying, even as Niall O'Brien was saying, unless Ireland get that last wicket somewhere before lunch and maybe get it within 20 runs, I think it's a huge call.
Yeah, we're not even having this conversation really. It becomes a massive shock once again.
Shamrock Rovers also on the brink is where you're going to kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, a fantastic result for them last night. Stephen Bradley, the manager, believes they can reach the third qualifying round of the Europa League after the comeback win against Apollon Limassol at Tallaght Stadium. Goals and defenders Lee Grace and Roberto Lopez gave the Hoops a 2-1 victory and a crucial advantage to take into next Thursday's return game in Cyprus. Jack Byrne set up both goals and put in a performance which has again impressed his manager.
He's starting to show what a special player he is. He's a proper footballer now. He works his arse off for the team, and then his quality is there for everyone to see. I thought he was the best player on the pitch by a mile tonight, like he was last week with Bran. But like I said, it's really pleasing to see the work rate and the teamwork that he's putting in, and then his quality is there for everyone to see.
All match winner Roberto Lopez is already looking forward to next week's second leg.
It's a great result. We're probably disappointed that we didn't score probably 1 or 2 more, given they went down to 10 men and we had a few more chances at set pieces. We only gave us 2-1 before the game. We would have took a hand off, because as you say, it gives us a chance going over there to keep a clean sheet, which is how we earn our money. What we love to do, as you say, defend. If we can keep a clean sheet there, we know we can go through, and I say with Jack's delivery we will get more chances to score. So it's going to be a massive game for us as defenders. I'm looking forward to it.
Elsewhere in the Europa League qualifiers last night, Wolves defeated Crusaders 2-0 at Molineux, while Rangers were also 2-0 victors against Cork's conquerors Progress Niederkorn at Ibrox. After last weekend 7-0 hammering at the hands of Shamrock Rovers, UCD will look to get back on track tonight when Waterford visit Belfield. Tonight's other SSC Airtricity Premier Division game is a Northwest derby in Ballybuffet. Finn Harps are taking on their neighbours Derry City. Republic of Ireland manager Mick McCarthy says teenager Troy Parrott is a shoe-in for a call-up to the senior squad if he remains involved with the Tottenham first team at the start of the season. The 17-year-old started in attack alongside Harry Kane in Spurs' 2-1 friendly defeat to Manchester United in China yesterday. It's after he impressed against Juventus last week. McCarthy says competitive football rather than friendly appearances will determine whether Parrott makes the Ireland squad for this autumn's Euro 2020 qualifiers. The Limerick manager John Kiley has resisted the temptation to make changes ahead of Saturday's All-Ireland Hurling semi-final against Kilkenny at Croke Park. He's named the same team and panel from last month's victory against Tipperary in the Munster decider. Limerick come into the game as Munster League and All-Ireland champions, but Kiley says there's no way that they're going to write off the Cats.
That's one thing you can be guaranteed, that you're going to get an absolutely horrendous level of intensity and tackling. So, and they're ruthless when they get the chances up front as well. You know, they've scored a really huge amount of scores. You know, they're creating 38 to 40 scoring chances every match. So, like, they're in a really good vein of form, and I know it's going to take a huge performance from us to be competitive in the first instance on Saturday night. And if we're going to try and get the result, we're going to have to play extremely well.
Well, to the action at Lords coming up later on today. Mark Adair took 3 wickets as England finished day 2 on 303 for 9 at Lords. It's a lead of just 181 runs. Stuart Broad and Ollie Stone are the 2 batsmen at the crease this morning when it gets back underway at 11 a.m. Adair says despite being in a very good position, Ireland aren't celebrating just yet.
I don't know about the rest of the lads, but I'm not sort of guy who looks too far ahead of things. I think ball by ball, and you have to take this ball by ball, because that's how, you know, every ball's an event and every ball is the opportunity to sort of change the games.
The Irish Open champion John Ram holds a 3-shot lead at 8 under par into day 2 of the WGC FedEx St Jude Invitational. That round overnight was the best of John Ram's career. Rory McIlroy is 7 shots back at 1 under par, the same score as the defending champion Dustin Johnson. Rasadat Adeleke is a double sprint gold medalist at the Youth Olympics in Baku. The Talis sprinter followed up her 100 metres victory with gold last evening in the 200 metres, and she says the win was completely unexpected.
I'm just so happy. It was kind of a late decision to do both events, because I don't know, I was only meant to do one event, but to come with the 2 goals is so unexpected. I'm just so happy.
Wimbledon tennis champion Novak Djokovic has withdrawn from the Rogers Cup in Montreal. The tennis world number 1 says he needs time to rest after defeating Roger Federer earlier this month to win his 16th Grand Slam title at Wimbledon. Defending champion Rafa Nadal will now be top seed for the tournament, which begins on August the 5th. Defending champion Geraint Thomas will head into today's stage 19 at Cycling's Tour de France, 95 seconds off the lead. Today's route sees the riders continuing heading across the Alps with a summit finish into the winter ski resort of Teen. And trainer Gordon Elliott plans to run 3 horses in Thursday's €300,000 Guinness Galway Hurdle. Elliott has been discussing his potential runners with Dave Keena as the festival draws close.
Probably have 3 in the hurdle if they all get in. Chosen mate probably is the pick of them. He looks like he's in good form. He's got graded form. Tombstone, who on his best form he'd have a chance, but he's a bit hot and cold. And a Star Maker getting off the bottom on his Clarny run, he could run well, but he might be looking to get in.
And Chosen mate, very progressive novice last season. Was it the idea to go for the Galway Hurdle after he ran an entry last year? He won a listed hurdle in Nice.
We said after an entry we give him a break and bring him back for the Galway Hurdle. That's always been the plan, yeah.
And how are the rest of the crew for the hurdle?
They're grand. Tombstone has ran away. His form is there. He runs his race every day. And Star Maker, if he gets in his Clarny run, he's going to need you a chance.
And plenty of runners each day? We'll have plenty of runners. You know, Galway I don't always be the strongest for all the winter horses are back in, and we're looking forward to it, but we try and support these big races.
All right, that is Gordon Elliott wrapping up Will's latest news from the world of sport. One comment here on Facebook, Eamon Murray. OK, so there's plenty of contact in about whether it's been going to be Ireland's greatest sporting moment of all time. So it was a great win in Royal Portrush, but time to move on. Cricket team on the cusp of a famous win and the Hurling Championship semi-finals this weekend. Time to refocus on the present and the future.
It's true. It's true. We as a nation need to stop getting carried away, and otherwise,
are we going to absolutely live in the moment from now on, where we go, what's next? Next week,
I don't know.
Be the best.
Maybe Eamon could tell us exactly what the window that we're allowed to enjoy it within is.
Do we have too much sporting talent? Really, is the next debate we should have here.
Time for Deal or No Deal.
You know, we tried to hook a big one, but he got away.
Yeah, all right, it is 9:20 on this Friday morning. Eoin and Will with us for Deal or No Deal. Everton lads to kick off have told Crystal Palace that they're prepared to bid 60 million quid and include 28-year-old Turkey striker Cenk Tosun as part of the deal for Wilfried Zaha. So a third more cash than Arsenal offered for him and the player. We already know that Munich are linked with him. Fresh reports that Chelsea want to hijack that bid, even if they can't register him remarkably until next summer because of their transfer ban. All from the Telegraph. Where's he going?
So Everton are now going to have a much nicer stadium than Arsenal, which we saw the plans for yesterday, and they can blow Arsenal out of the transfer market as well, Owen.
It seems that way. I wouldn't say they're going to blow Arsenal out of the transfer market. Like, I do wonder, is there going to be a bit of a tax thing going on here when it comes to Manchester United perhaps Manchester City leading Manchester United down the garden path when it comes to signing players like Alexis Sanchez and potentially Harry Maguire. This is Wilfried Zaha, let's not forget. They want 80 million for Wilfried Zaha. This is not, I don't know who you can even, but this is not Gareth Bale. This is still Wilfried Zaha. This is somebody who wants to leave the club for sure, and that, I think, should lower the price. The thing is, Manchester United are due a fine slice of Wilfried Zaha's transfer fee, which I believe is holding this thing up. The other thing that's holding this thing up is that they've got all the money off the Aaron Wan-Bissaka trade, off the transfer, so they actually don't need that much. They're not actually desperate for the money. Would anybody be desperate for Cenk Tosun?
No.
Exactly. So I think there is every chance that he still goes to Arsenal at somewhere in the middle between the 40 and the 80 million price. About a 60 million transfer to Arsenal. By the way, this whole thing about Arsenal having a 40 million pounds war chest is complete nonsense. That just is not true.
The ultimate scheme where you go, I just don't have any money. I mean, we're going to have to come to a deal here.
Also, but can you describe 40 million as a war chest anymore? It sounds like pittance compared to it.
But this is the thing that's being put out there from like the start of the year. Like near the end of the season, it's like, no matter if Arsenal qualify for the Champions League, this is before they bottle the end of the season. No matter what they qualify for, no matter what they win, they will have 40 million pounds. What a load of crap. It's all depending on what your season finishes on. How they manage to come up with their end of season valuation for what their transfer kitty would be is bizarre. So this is not true. Arsenal have more than 40 million quid to spend. That is a fact. And I would expect them to spend 60 million quid on one player in Wilfried Zaha. The thing is, do they now accept that? I think Crystal Palace will.
Do you think that the Arsenal HR manager is pulling Mesut Ozil in this morning and saying, listen, Mesut, this is a dangerous place for you to be?
It's not as dangerous as being in his car.
But this is what I'm saying. This geographical area is not a good place for you to be. Maybe you should look at, like, Paris seems like a good, safe city.
Not a bad idea. You'd get that weight off from around your neck.
Out the gap.
100%. Like, it's been a big day for Mesut Ozil yesterday. Let's not forget. I mean, there was a picture posted on Twitter yesterday, and a Spurs fan posted. They saw, wait, why the hell is Ozil in our team photo? As you can see, there's Ozil at the back left, absent, missing. That's a joke. And then Ozil came back. If you look closely, you can see our trophy cabinet. Hey. Go on, Mesut Ozil. A good day. Managed to survive a knife crime and managed to completely destroy a Spurs fan.
Wolves are being linked with Sami Khedira. WTF.
Who's his agent? I have a sneaky feeling he's the same agent that brings everyone to Wolves.
Right, I'm with you.
Which makes this one a possible runner, really.
Yeah? I
mean, obviously Wolves...
Deal or no deal?
Well, a very possible deal, I would think. I'm not sure exactly how he fits the profile because João Moutinho runs things in the middle of that midfield unless they want a workhorse in beside him. Khedira could potentially come into play there. Jorge Mendes has a hell of a system going on there where he brings people to Wolves and eventually these Wolves players are going to be shipped on at a profit. I've absolutely no doubt. The likes of Diego Jota and so on are going to be worth an awful lot more than the 30-ish million that Wolves have paid for them. There's going to be Premier League markup if Premier League clubs buy them as well. I guess Sami Khedira is a sensible one. You just bring someone in who's a decent player. In all likelihood, he's not going to play at Juventus now that Rabiot is in as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think this is a bit of a plaster fix. I don't think it's actually a fantastic signing for Wolves whatsoever. The profile is bigger than the actual talent he'll be able to bring for a long term. A good one-season fix, perhaps. How much more does he have left?
Danny Ceballos has revealed the prospect of working with Unai Emery at Arsenal on a season-long loan from Real Madrid. He's lots of quotes that pour great praise on Unai Emery. How excited does that make you, Owen?
Hugely. Great signing. This is exactly what Arsenal needed to do. If you do believe that, okay, granted, I don't think that the 40 million thing as a transfer spend is a real thing, but ultimately they can't spend lavishly at the same time, and a one-year loan deal with an extraordinarily talented player is one way of going about it. Captain of the Spanish under-21 side that won the European Championships. I think sometimes we forget actually how well respected Unai Emery is as a manager. I think sometimes he's tarred with the same brush that all the club is tarred with. Of course, it's a crap board of directors. They're about 1 million years old collectively. Terrible backroom team, and they're starting to get that together in terms of getting Edu in. But actually what they have is a really good manager, a really top European manager in my opinion. In
the Europa League for sure.
Hugely respected by people like Danny Ceballos. His quotes yesterday, of course Spurs were in the mix with Danny Ceballos here, but he picked Arsenal because the history, the badge. Since I was little I've been watching Arsenal playing the Champions League, well, not anymore, and so on. And there are a lot of French players who've come here. That is William Saliba who said that yesterday, who of course also picked Arsenal over Spurs. So between Ceballos and Saliba, the young French star centre back that they signed yesterday, they managed to pip Spurs to the post on the double. So a great day to be an Arsenal fan.
Ceballos is a brilliant player when he's at Real Betis 3 years ago, Adrian. If he's getting regular football, it could go well. Emery's buying guys he knows. It was the same way he tried to get Dennis Suarez last season as well. So he knows a lot about Ceballos. I think he's going to be a good player for them.
He's taking Aaron Ramsey's number 8 shirt as well, which suggests that they have some faith in him. I don't think somehow that they'll be able to keep him beyond next season, though. I think he's going to have a very good year.
Deal, by the sounds of things.
Oh, deal, massive deal.
The section labelled boring big story seeking resolution. Ole has told Manchester United top brass, it's across all the back pages, that he needs Harry Maguire ASAP, after Eric Bailly picked up a nasty-looking injury yesterday. Name a recent transfer with massive money on the line that's as boring as the process of Manchester United eventually spending 80 million big ones on Harry Maguire.
Van Dijk was kind of boring. The Van Dijk process was boring. Granted, it was January, so it didn't last as long. All big money moves these days are kind of boring, to be honest.
The only thing about Van Dijk was you had Southampton reporting Liverpool initially the summer before, and there was, will Southampton continue to sell their entire club to Liverpool, or will they dig in? And eventually they sold them.
True.
But most of these sagas, Neymar is far more boring than that, Adrian.
Klopp says that Bale is not coming to Liverpool, which is boring, but he added that they want a team, not individuals. So a nice little bit of a dig from Jurgen, a bit of a sideswipe there on Jurgen Klopp. Going into the weekend, what do you expect next weekend's biggest transfer stories to be?
Well, Neymar is going to get resolved at some point.
Boring or not boring?
Pretty boring at this stage.
Neymar to find a club that is called FC Barcelona.
Anything else?
It is the most boring saga of the summer by a mile. Maguire is still going to be dragging on as well. I think Leicester, if they are going to sell him, will probably end up selling him quite close to the start of the season, and it seems they've got Dunk lined up if he does go.
And lapsed one a little bit from left field here. Boca Juniors confirmed the signing of Italian midfielder Daniele De Rossi, who's left Roma after 18 years at the club, so he joins the Argentinian side on a free transfer. Nice piece of business for them. He's expected to retire as a one-club man, but off now to further sun himself in South America. Sweet deal. Yeah,
Bertiso is who would have played for Roma for 5 years, centre half as a technical director there, so he's attracted De Rossi across. De Rossi, Roma tried to make him a director. He said, look, I think I've got 1 or 2 years of football in me. Parma tried to sign him, didn't want to play against Roma, which is understandable after 18 years. And then Carlos Vea's club, the MLS leaders, LAFC, tried to sign him as well, but I think he went for the romance of signing for Boca Juniors. They have Tevez still on the books there as well. I think De Rossi, who will probably be rotating in and out of the team at the age of 36, are probably the favourites to win the Copa Libertadores now.
That was deal or no deal.
To be say now, is a dream come true for me.
Great business, lads. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
A pleasure, as always.
As always. Yeah. I suspect we'll be back on Monday too. Are Ireland going to get it done today? I mean, what do you think?
Half the ball, England out for less than 20 runs this morning, to have any chance. I think it's even going to be nervy, even if they got them out in the first ball. It's 182. Ireland batted, 207 the other day? Under pressure, final innings, chasing at Lords. It's hard enough to see, but I didn't think we'd be in this position at the start of the test.
It's going to go close. If they get in front of 20 runs and say the target is 200, that is, like as you say, 207 the last day. And Niall O'Brien saying that the lads are a bit nervous this morning. It depends how they kind of channel those nerves.
All right, coming up on it's OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day. You can pick it up at offtheball.com or on the Go Loud app. Plenty of great stuff coming up over the course of the day. Midday, the latest episode in the new It's Not a Sport podcast from Off the Ball's Enda Call and Ronan Mullen. That's from midday. Then after that, it's OTB Gold in a week with 2 awful tragedies in the ring in boxing. Ray Boom Boom Mancini will talk us through his life in boxing. The Jason Quigley interview will follow that from 2 o'clock. 3 is the latest episode of the Hurling Show with Shane Stapleton, Ryan O'Dwyer and a couple of other people.
It's a hell of a show. Well worth a listen back. Ryan O'Dwyer particularly talking about the guys getting dropped in 2007. It's worth a listen for that. Okay, and Land of the Rising Scrum as well will be coming your way. Canada the Focus from 4 o'clock. Live Off the Ball from 7 and Team 33 from 9 o'clock. So that's pretty much it from us for this morning. Thanks a million for everything over the course of the day. Will, cheers.
Thank you to you. Owen, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much. You
Whatever
too.
that entails. The hurling.
Not sure. I'm not sure if I'll go, but I'll certainly be watching it.
Very good. And for you for this morning, good morning.
OTB AM. Brought to you by Avantcard Reward Plus Credit Card. Powered by MasterCard. Straight up better than your current credit card. Avantcard DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.